It's Rock 30, Bill and Jay's excellent podcast, with your hosts, Billy Quinton and Jay Odom. Our special guest this evening is Aimee Thibodeaux. Let's roll.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to podcast number 12, Bill and Jay's excellent podcast. This is Rock 30, and I'm Billy Quinton.
I'm Jay Odom.
And we are very excited with our next guest. And, Jay, I'm going to hand it over to you because I'm just going to say this to start it out. You know, people say they've seen Bigfoot, but did they really? People say they've seen a UFO. We have seen a liberal in Rockwall County. We have a liberal with us in Rockwall County in the shack.
Well, I've heard rumors.
I know. I heard rumors that there was a liberal running around.
That's right.
And people said, no, I saw it. I saw it. It was in a rainbow shirt. And we're like, really? Really?
Yeah.
And here we are. You know, so go ahead and introduce our guest.
She's here. Our guest tonight, she's hard to pin down with words, is what I'll say. She's worked for years in adoption, writing, acting, restauranteering, if that's a word, real estate. Her journey is and her story it's truly unbelievable. She's a pioneer, she's a fighter, and she's persevered through all of it. And she's my friend. Her name is Aimee Thibodeaux, and we are glad to have you here tonight. And we've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Let me start with this.
Let's unpack.
And this, I guess it's your husband. You're single right now. Yeah, you're
I'm
single.
not married.
So it is but Thibodeaux's kind of a cool name.
It is a very cool name. What is the root of it? I mean, it's French.
He's Cajun. He's
I know.
from Karen Crow, Louisiana. His father's from Karen Crow, Louisiana.
Okay. If I didn't have Quentin and I could have picked it, I'm going Thibodeaux.
Thibodeaux's pretty good.
That's really cool.
When we got divorced, he tried to get them to make me go back to my maiden name.
Oh, really?
And they wouldn't let him. So.
And your maiden name?
Foster.
That is such a switch.
Yeah.
Foster to Thibodeaux.
You can't lose the Thibodeaux.
Such a good last name.
You got to keep Thibodeaux.
Yeah.
Is that all you got out of the divorce?
The kid and the last name.
Yeah,
The name,
exactly.
is that
That's
all
all
you
you
Only
needed.
thing worth.
That's all you needed. That's great. And the Aimee is Aimee.
Correct.
It's not like the AMY. So you got it going with the
Very
name deal.
special
Little
name.
French thing
Except,
going
you
on.
know, if you like you didn't have Thibodeaux when you were in kindergarten. My wife was a kindergarten teacher, and the kids with the weird spellings and names you have to kind of get used to.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
You know, but you didn't have Thibodeaux. Aimee Foster probably wasn't a big adjustment.
Real easy.
No.
Now when
Lot
people
of
call me to
Amees.
sell something, it's Thibodeaux. Getting on our last flight, I hear a pause, and she goes, taboo? That's me.
Wow.
So one of the things, I mean, I've known Aimee for years now.
Yeah.
We did a real estate deal together.
About
She's
nine and a half
a
years.
realtor,
Yeah.
and I was doing the loan. And do you remember the reason I went with you to a walkthrough for a house?
Oh, yeah, the crazy buyer.
She had a buyer that was literally scary, like
And abusive.
yeah.
Like man or woman?
It was
a
a
man.
man.
Man. Well, you needed to have somebody with you then. You can't be doing that solo.
He was insane.
Yeah.
He was literally insane. And Jay felt sorry for me, so he picked me up and he's like, "Let's go to Flower Mound."
Well, I was worried about you.
And we did it
Really?
because he did their loan, so
Yeah,
he knew
yeah,
how
I
crazy
know.
it was.
Oh, okay.
We did an hour and a half walkthrough.
Oh,
And then the guy complains to my broker that I rushed him through the walkthrough, that there were issues with the house when he refused and signed that he wanted no inspection. He literally knocked on walls and said, "I used to build houses in the 80s." I'm like, okay.
Yeah. It was
Yeah, he was
crazy.
insane.
Remember there was a side patio that was second story, and I remember we walked out there and I was like, "Whoa, this thing is going to cave in." And we laughed about it and said, "Yeah, this needs to be looked at." And then later that was one of the things. I never knew that there was trouble with this, and I was like, "Do you not remember that conversation?" So
Wow.
people will just make stuff up. But yeah, so we drove that long distance. I didn't know who you were, and that within that drive we had discussed, I think, our whole lives.
Yeah, we trauma bonded.
Yeah, everything. and now when we get together, that's really
Yeah.
what we just talk.
Yeah, I mean, you and Allison have become some of my best friends. They're my therapists. I'll call.
Oh, that's
I'll
great.
text and I'll be like, "Hey, is the therapist in?
Oh,
I need a session."
then I need to call Allison.
she's pretty good. She is very, as crazy as I am, she is.
Rock
Rock
solid.
solid.
Keeps me solid.
Yeah.
She does. She
solid.
does.
That's good.
But
Can
yeah,
she be a part of the podcast to help you through
She
it?
won't.
Yeah.
she would do it.
People don't know this, but before every podcast, Jay is a walking nerve. You're just
all around, all the cameras.
just so antsy, flop sweat, everything. You're just going nuts.
It's true, but the funny thing about it is, and this is really one of the bigger reasons I wanted to have you on, is we have some pretty big political differences.
Oh, yeah.
In some ways. I mean, you know, I know you don't like to use the label Democrat, liberal, but there, you know, that's pretty much what you would identify, right? You certainly wouldn't say you're a conservative.
I definitely am very liberal leaning compared to you.
Liberal, right.
Right.
But you know,
I consider myself completely common sense. I'm just going to throw that out.
You know what?
As
Amy?
opposed to-
We'll be the judge of that by the
That's
end
right.
of the podcast.
This is up in the air. But I've always enjoyed being able to have discussions and no one screaming.
No, we
Yes.
don't get it's.
And that's rare.
And that's
you
what
know?
we want to do here, and that's what we've been trying to do, because we want to get a lot of people that are just great people, no matter what, you know, our beliefs are or whatever. And we're going to talk to Aimee about, you know, her beliefs, and definitely we're going to talk about adoption, which is a thing very important to me. And but yeah, I want to get everybody, you know. If we could go get an ISIS member, we'd go get an ISIS member to come in and say, "Why are you blowing us up? What are you doing?" You know,
I
Let's
could
talk
make a
about
really
this.
bad joke. But I won't.
Go ahead.
Really,
So-
I said to Jay, this is going to be either wonderful or I'm going to have to move when this is over. One of two. And I'm good with moving. I've got a bit of a gypsy spirit. I
That's
can
good.
go reinvent myself
But don't.
somewhere.
We are non-censorship here. You can go and say whatever
I
you
said
want.
nothing's off limits.
Okay, good.
We
good.
don't judge
And I
until
don't get my
later.
feelings
That's,
hurt.
Once we edit, then we do a lot of judging.
that's
I'm
when
going to
it's-
leave and it's going to be alive.
It's our first 5-minute podcast after we do all the editing.
Welcome, Amy. Goodbye.
So and you know, it makes sense. You are a California girl.
I am.
Come
Born-
to Texas,
I've been here 18 years now. Come on.
bringing your liberal ways.
California to
California to our Texas.
Carpet bag with all that liberal stuff in it. Bringing it here.
So tell us, growing up in what part of California? Tell
The
us
Bay
what you're
Area.
upbringing.
Oh, yeah,
What's
hard.
now the Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Right? I grew up in San Jose, so I spent a lot of time in Santa Cruz, Capitola. I spent a lot of time on the beach growing up. I mean, and we moved to the Central Valley when I was in high school, and pretty much my parents tried to ruin my life.
Oh, wow. Wow. And we're off.
But it ended up fine. It ended up great, and I, have, still some great friends. Even, I mean, I'm still friends with people I went to kindergarten with all these years later. We just had my 45th high school reunion.
Oh,
I guess it's
wow.
coming up this weekend. I won't be there, but. So I was just born and raised in California. I've been
Okay.
here 18 years, but I've made some pit stops on the way around. Arizona, Nevada.
Now, where did you go to school? What kind of school?
So I did in the Bay Area. I got to go to normal traditional school, but when we moved to the Central Valley, I had to go to private school. So I started going to Catholic school.
I'm sure that worked out fine.
It says a lot.
I
I'm
mean,
sure everything was smooth.
and if we were good, we got to wear blue jeans on Friday. But there were no uniforms, so I was good with that.
Oh, wow.
And it was fine, and it was a small school, and they had a great theater program. I'm a big theater person, so loved it. But after my brother committed suicide, I was the kid that got whispered about in the hallway. At least I felt that way. So I said, I can't go back there. And they said, well, you have to go to a Christian school. And I said, how about that Adventist school on the corner? I knew nothing about the Seventh-day Adventist religion.
Oh, wow.
My first day of school, I go into the cafeteria, and I'm like, where's the meat?
Yeah. You picked a doozy.
And I'm like, you can't dance? And I was a dancer. I've danced my whole life. And I'm like, we can't wear jewelry? And I was like, what is
So you
going
didn't
on?
know what you were getting into.
Even as a
did not.
hardcore Christian, I'm like, Seventh-day Adventist? What are you doing?
But I have to tell you, and we can circle back to it, but God knew exactly what he was doing
Sure.
because I went through losing my father while I was there, and that community was incredible.
I bet. Yeah.
So I don't want to get too crazy because
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
lot of
Well,
layers.
you've had a lot of big obstacles in your life.
Yes.
And it started really young. You mentioned your brother, and he had some mental illness, some
He
serious
did,
mental illness.
yeah. I mean, he was adopted. He was a biological cousin that my parents adopted, and he was a late talker, a late walker, a late developer. And my mother would take him, and she would say, I have a lot of kids, and this isn't normal. And they would say, quit trying to find problems, lady. And she's like, this isn't normal, this isn't normal. And he had a schizophrenic break around puberty, and he was diagnosed. And it, only got more tumultuous from there. And, when you live in a household where a family member has mental illness, it affects everybody. And in many ways, I could do anything I wanted as long as I didn't cause grief to the rest of the family because they were just, he controlled everything. And
Did that affect you as far as, I know even if it's negative stuff or frustrating stuff, that he's getting the attention
Yes.
a lot. He's getting the focus a lot.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I had none. I remember I was getting a big award and I was giving a big speech. Oh, but he ended up in juvenile hall that day. So they had to deal with that, and they couldn't come and see me. And I'm thinking, I'm doing everything right. And he gets all the attention. I was angry.
I think
resentful,
any kid would be.
And resentful. I was very resentful. And, at 52, I can see it a lot different than I did at 14, 15. I became his caregiver in a lot of ways. There's a lot there. And he had multiple suicide attempts. He wouldn't stay on his medication, and you can't make someone do it. And he would run away, and he would go to jail, and all of the things. And he probably had 10 or 11 suicide attempts.
Now, the illness, the schizophrenia,
Yeah.
did that include the visions?
Yeah, he saw demons. He saw things like walking home from school. We'd have to go around an orchard like a mile out of our way because the demons were in the trees. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Was he with you when he would see the demons?
Yes.
And he would.
Yes.
Were you like looking?
Ain't
Like,
nothing
did
there.
Okay.
I mean, I knew there was nothing there. But so he would tell his psychiatrist, they're afraid of her. He described me as a peacock. He said, she's the most beautiful bird, and everybody loves her, everybody wants to be here, and they're afraid of her. And I'm like, okay. And so my parents...
The demons are afraid
The
of you.
demons are afraid of me. And so my parents' solution to that was to have me sleep in a twin bed in his room so that he would have peace. And I'm thinking, what about me? Can I have some peace?
Yeah.
So he shot himself on Super Bowl Sunday in 1987, January 25th. But on the 23rd, he came into where I was working. I worked as a go-go dancer in a teenage dance club.
Oh, wow. That Seventh-day Adventist worked out well, didn't it?
I was Catholic school back then. As long as,
that was the Catholic girl.
As
yeah,
long as
that
I
was
went
the
to
Catholic
confession
girl.
and ate a wafer, I was golden.
Wow.
Come Friday night, I could do what I wanted. And he came in and he said, I'm going to kill myself. And I said, get it right this time.
Oh, ooh.
And that was the last thing I said to him. And then I came home from church that Sunday. I came home from Mass. And I knew something was off. My mother did too. She came to pick me up, and the energy in the house was different, and our dog was going crazy. My mother ran out to our orchard because he frequently would try to hang himself. So she ran out the back door. I went into his room, and he had 2 bookcases, and he was laying on his side, and I saw beer cans, and I thought, Jesus. So being the caregiver, I start picking the beer cans up. I'm going to put him in bed so there's not a big fight. And then I saw the gun, and then I saw the wound to his head. And I yelled for my mom, and I called, 911. So.
Wow.
And then the
And how old are you?
I'm 15, and he was 17.
Did you immediately think of the last words you said to him?
Not immediately. No, not immediately. Immediately, I thought, like, I have to take care of my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she sat down on the floor, and she put his head in a pillow, and she was rocking him, and she's like, trying to get him to wake up. And, so I immediately went into fixer mode. Let me fix this. Let me let the EMS in. Let me be the adult.
That's who you were.
Right. Yeah. Let me do these things. So, yeah. So that came later.
You found forgiveness for yourself?
Oh, 100%. I mean, 100%.
Not that it was in any way your fault. But
Yeah,
just,
no. I've made
to
peace,
have
absolute peace with it. With, I'm at peace with everything that's happened to me in my life. I think that being angry or being not at peace with things is such a waste of energy. It's a waste of energy. It's cancer in me. It doesn't affect anybody else but me. So I let it go.
So you graduate high school. Did you go to college?
No.
Well, you skipped.
You skipped a lot.
Oh, wow.
You got pregnant when you were 16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So this was your sophomore year.
No, I graduated when I was 17, so it was the summer before my senior year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so tell us the story of this. Is this in the Catholic Church?
Wait. Let me get. I forgot. I missed that part in the notes. And so let me get straight here. So you're 15. You find your brother, and then
10 months later, my dad drops dead.
Then 10 months later, your dad passes away. Holy cow!
And ironically, they had the same birthday, which I think is funny, or whatever.
Wow.
Not funny, but.
And then after that is when you get
I got pregnant. So my father died in October, and I got pregnant like May the following year, right when school got out, between junior and senior year.
It was your boyfriend?
Yeah, it was my high school boyfriend. He had graduated from the school. I was like ASB vice president. I was spirit leader. Couldn't have cheerleaders, but we had spirit leaders, and I was a spirit leader, and I was involved in the yearbook. I was all the things. I got great grades, popular girl. And I got pregnant, and denial is not just a river in Egypt. And I was so afraid of disappointing my mother that I didn't say anything, and I hid it. I could have been the girl that you see on TV that gives birth in the prom, and nobody knew. I went to school every day. I dressed out for PE, and over Christmas break, I told my mother that I was pregnant, and she took me to the doctor thinking I was newly pregnant, and they said, she's going to have this baby in 6 weeks.
Okay, you weren't showing?
No, but as soon as I told, it was like the next day, he's like, oh, thank God I can come out.
Really?
Yeah.
Like the subconscious.
I wore my clothes, dressed out for PE, participated, ran, played sports.
Abortion never entered your mind. Now, is this, it was, so that's good.
No.
All right, good.
No.
All right.
So for me, I'm so pro-choice, it would make your skin crawl. but
Yeah, look.
but
It
for
is.
me,
Going.
that wasn't a choice.
Right,
That
right,
wasn't a choice for me. So I gave birth to my son. I knew that I was not prepared to parent. My mother was not prepared to lose a grandchild. I had found adoptive parents for him, independent adoptive parents, and she said, you're not giving my grandson away. And my brother and his wife struggled for years and years with infertility. And I said, what if Pete and Mary adopt him? And she said, well, you'll have to ask them. She was so mad. And I remember I was at work. I worked at Mountain Mike's Pizza, and I picked the phone up at work and
very good pizza, Mountain
made
Mike's.
a
Very
long-distance phone call in 1988. And my sister-in-law...
I forgot about those
You had to press the
days.
one.
Yeah, and I thought, this is coming out of my check.
You panic with the seconds going by.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, make a decision fast.
Right.
And my sister-in-law answered, and I said, hey, I'm pregnant, and I'm going to have a baby in a few weeks. Do you and Pete want to adopt him? And she said, yes. Just like that. And I said, do you want to talk to Pete? She said, no. And I said, okay, great, problem. In my mind, I was like, problem solved.
Outstanding.
Was not ready to be a mother. He was not ready to be a father.
Did your mother bring up abortion?
No.
It just was.
No, abortion was brought up to my mother when she got pregnant with me because of her age. And
How old was she?
30, going on 37,
Okay.
back in the 70s. And she got off the table and she left and found a new doctor. So, But she was pro-choice. My mom, you want to talk liberal, if we could get a Ouija board and bring her back, she'd give you a run for your money.
I don't think we can handle two of y'all. I don't think we can do two. That's right.
So no, I mean, it just
Small
just-
Small samples.
it wasn't on the table for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he is 35 and has a great life and a wife and you know.
Okay, now you're cruising through things. Okay, so let's go back to how involved are you in his life? When did he know you were his mom, or how did all that work out?
Well, I don't want to tell too much of a story, but what I will say is I never regretted my adoption.
Right.
Not for a second. There was sadness around it, and the sadness was they said they would always let him know he was adopted, that it would be part of his story, and then they chose not to make it a part of his story. And he did not find out until he was a young teenager.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that healed me a lot when
Okay.
he was able to call me and ask questions and put some of his pieces together.
When they told him, they said you were his mom, or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Because you've heard the story of Jack Nicholson. I don't know if y'all have heard that story, where his mom, he finds out later, it was his sister. He finds out later was his mom, and they had told him his whole life because she was a much older sister, and he finds out later in life, like in his 20s, that his sister's actually his mom. And
Imagine what that does to
right,
you.
right,
I mean,
and that's what I was getting to. I may have it wrong, but I know he had an intimate family member that later on was his mom.
And I want to clarify, I'm not his mom. I'm his biological mother.
Right,
because
right.
Mary is his mother.
And this is him here.
Yeah. So those are all
look
of
at
my
there.
biological
That's
kids.
that's all four of them.
Look at that.
So, yeah, I mean, our kids, especially the two older, grew up together, flying back and forth, visiting. I've had a wonderful relationship with him. And then he and my younger daughter have a very close relationship. He speaks like 4 languages. He's a foreign language teacher. And every year he takes his students to Europe. Wow. And she got to go with him. She got to fly to Seattle and then fly out with him and spent 2 weeks. So they have a really great relationship.
That's
he has
great.
a fantastic wife. He's a good kid.
That's great.
Well, he's not a kid. He's 35, but he's a kid.
35.
Yeah.
To us, he is a kid.
He is a
Right.
child.
They're always gonna be a kid.
Child.
Yeah. Like I said before, I got kids now in their 20s, and I still say, "You're a kid." No,
Yeah.
you could. So
Yeah.
Now, going back a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
when you were a child, the trauma that you experienced really started
I think it was about
early
7.
on.
I mean, physical, sexual trauma, I guess is what you're getting
Yeah,
at.
yeah.
I grew up in a household where my mother was overwhelmed and I think a little resentful of my dad. My dad was a wonderful guy, but he was a high-functioning alcoholic. So while he was a great provider and just a kind, gregarious man, he wasn't present a lot. And I think my mother felt overwhelmed raising and doing everything. So she didn't come across as a very warm person. It wasn't until I became an adult and I could see her as, I was an overwhelmed mother. And I'm like, oh, wow, you were just human doing the best you could. I didn't give her any grace until I was an adult. And we became,
That's how it goes.
very, very close. Yeah.
And was it just you and your brother that she was raising, or were there more
No,
brothers and sisters?
There's a lot of us.
Okay.
Yeah. 4 biological, 1 adopted, and then we had cousins that lived with
Oh,
us.
wow. Okay.
That essentially my parents raised.
Oh,
So,
wow. Yeah, that's overwhelming.
At times there were 6 to 8 people.
Dad
in
wasn't
the
working
house.
to get away. He was just getting away.
He was just getting away. Yeah.
So there was a house full of people.
There was always a house full of people, and then the friends that came over because we were always the house that people could come to. Yeah, and so I suffered a lot of child sexual assault from the time I was 7 to 13 by about 5 different people. 3 of which were family members. One was a neighbor, and one was my best friend's grandfather. And I think that predators can find victims. I think they know what to look for, right? It was the 70s. We were pretty feral back then. We went out and we came home when the streetlights came on
right.
at 5, right? And I know, they always say signs of sexual blah, blah, blah. They're going to wet the bed and they're going to do this. No, they didn't. They became incredibly type A, excelled at everything they did, and became a people pleaser. And that's what I did, right?
You were the model student.
I was
like
a
you
model
said, you were
student. I was everybody's friend. Let me get involved in this. Let me do
And
theater.
nobody knew about this. You didn't tell anybody.
I didn't tell anybody. Now, my best friend at the time knew because it was happening to her with her grandfather.
The same guy that was.
One
okay.
of them, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
her grandfather.
Wow.
And it was this weird
Holy
thing.
cow.
This is going to sound completely insane because he lived near the beach, and we liked to go to Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk every weekend or Capitola. But in order to do that, we had to stay at his house. And we knew if we stayed at his house, what potentially could happen. So we would go and we would move dressers in front of the door, and we would do all these things to protect ourselves. And somehow we always got in. And I watched an ABC after-school special. Do you remember those?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was about a girl getting molested. And I went, I don't have to put up with this. So we went for a beach weekend, and I waited up for him, and I said, you can't do this to me, and I can call the police. And he said, well, then I'm not inviting you back. And I said, fine. And that was the end of it, but not without a lot of damage in my life, right?
So underneath it all, that you carried that with you through high school,
Through everything, through elementary school, through middle
to
school.
this day, I'm assuming.
I've done a lot of therapy. I've forgiven myself. I have forgiven them. I don't hold on to it anymore. I just don't.
It just seems like now, you talk about the 70s. Both of us grew up in the 70s.
Yeah.
Jay's a little younger than us.
a
But you,
lot younger.
a lot
pup,
younger.
young pup.
You have to
1 or 2
understand.
years.
Yeah. But the 70s were, that's a great description. It's feral because it was, especially in the summer. I remember distinctly
we
my
didn't come
mom
home.
saying, go out. And she's like, I'm locking the door. You're outside till dinner time.
Yeah.
And you just go do what you do.
You're drinking out of hoses.
Right,
You're hoping
right.
someone throws you a cheese
Yes.
sandwich.
Right.
Can
Wherever
you
you go,
still
somebody's.
taste that rubber hose?
Oh, yeah.
That, yes.
The
And the
best
idiot that
taste.
drank it first because you're like, dude, you got to wait. It's going to be hot.
It was always
It's gonna be
hot.
hot. You got to wait till it gets out.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the amount of people that are coming forward now that had these same experiences,
Very common.
it's a lot more common you think, because also back in that time, you just didn't say anything. You didn't,
Right.
You didn't do anything
Who's
about
gonna
it.
believe you?
Exactly. And there wasn't, you try to explain these things to your kids now when there wasn't 24-hour news and there wasn't a million things you could watch or do whatever or
Right.
find out
Right.
about things. Like you find out through an after-school special, which was still kind of, kind of a big deal back then when they started doing that.
It was risque.
It was.
Like,
It was like they can't talk about pregnancy and sexual
Yes,
abuse
or
and all
drugs.
that. Drugs.
But it empowered you.
It empowered me. I mean,
That's
I knew
crazy.
as a child, I'm going to say, hey, Uncle Cullen did this. Nobody was going to believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Or it would have been, well, what did you do? I remember getting sent one summer, and I didn't want to go to my aunt's house. And it was her husband was one of the people that did this to me, and one of her sons. And my dad was taking over a dealership. And he was there. So my mom said, you go spend some time with your dad. So I'm going to stay at my aunt's house. And I remember coming out, and it's summer. It's Central Valley, California. It is hotter than heck. And I'm wearing shorts and a tank top. And she says, you should be ashamed of yourself. Go cover yourself up. And I'm thinking, I was 7 the first time your husband touched me, is what I wanted to say to her.
Yeah.
I was in pajamas. And I was just like, okay, let me go change. Let me go put my turtleneck on, because that'll keep his hands off me. Like, it was just ridiculous. But that's the mindset.
Yeah,
so who was I going to tell?
Yeah, yeah.
So you just bury it and move on.
And you just kept going.
Bury it and move on. Yeah.
And so when you became pregnant,
Yes.
and you told the school.
Yeah.
You had to tell the school.
Well, I lied to the school.
To the Seventh-day Adventist people
Well,
that are
all
not
right.
dancing and letting their hair grow long and all that.
Let me talk about this.
And she's lying.
Is you lying?
So it's Christmas break, and my dad had died, right? So I just said, I won't be coming back. We can no longer afford it. Perfect. I'll have the baby. I'll finish high school. I'll move on with my life. They called back 2 days later, and they said, we are waiving tuition because we want you to finish school here. And I thought, damn it.
Yeah.
Well,
That would be great news for anybody else.
well, so then I had to tell them, and I had to go to the School for Pregnant Teenagers.
Yeah, sure.
Who made you go there? The
I
school?
had to. I mean, the school said I can't come back until I have the baby. And I had to be in school. So I had to enroll in public school. And there was one school, I don't remember, maybe Downey? I don't even remember the high school, but it was a program for pregnant teens. And I had to go there. And I remember the first day of class, I walk in, and the teachers are laughing. They have a folder open, and they're laughing. And they're like, this isn't one of ours. And I go, that's me. They're like, oh. I had to sit there while everyone made baby books and crocheted things and, had these, whatever. I mean, good for them. I hope they're doing well. I hope their children are doing well. It was a waste of time. I also had to do my schoolwork at the Adventist school if I wanted to graduate. So I'm doing their BS, how to make a bottle and change a diaper, and I'm doing my high school, thesis final on the human factor in nuclear error. And I'm doing this, and I'm like, well, let me out of here. But that school
I want to go into detail about that.
Yeah,
when we
let's
have
do
time.
that.
Let's
Chernobyl is riveting.
Circle back to
Yeah.
But that school had me back year after year after year to talk to their students
That's
about
great.
adoption.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
That's great.
So-
yeah.
So you knew from the beginning, even when you'd gone to the school, and all the other girls, I guess most of them were probably going to keep their babies?
Yeah, they were all keeping their babies.
But you knew you were not.
Oh, I was not.
You were not.
I was not. I was not ready to be a mother. I did not want to be a parent with him.
And what was his mindset? I'm sure he was.
He didn't want anyone to know.
Right, right,
I
okay.
mean, I remember being in labor and people from our church found out because he was Pentecostal. And we would go to this Pentecostal church. And they're calling labor and delivery. And labor and delivery won't tell them anything. So they call my mom, and my mom was like, she's having a baby. And he gets on the phone and said, no, it's not a baby. It's kidney stones. Or like
Oh,
something
wow.
ridiculous. And I'm like, yeah, it's a 7-pound, 13-ounce kidney stone.
It's that constant hiding of the truth.
And he's hid it from his kids. And
to
Sean,
this day?
to this day, Sean reached out to him multiple times trying to get his medical information. That's all he wanted. He doesn't want a relationship. He has a father. And he wouldn't do it. And he would call me from time to time. You tell Sean Michael, blah. And I go, Sean Michael is an adult. I can't tell him anything.
Right.
And he waited. He has 3 or 4 other sisters, 4 sisters maybe on his biological father's side. And he waited till they were adults, and he reached out to them. And at first they were like, no, it's not true. But now he has relationships with them. And the last time I talked to Chris, I said to him, you know what? You can continue lying to your kids, or you can say, I was 18, I was scared, and I did what I thought was best. I said, but all you've done is lie to your kids, dude. I don't lie to my kids.
Can you take us through the process of having that baby and letting that baby go? What that meant?
So for me, it was a little bit different because nobody was involved, right? They just had an attorney. I didn't have counseling. I didn't have an advocate in my corner. The hospital didn't know what to do with me, so they basically put me in a storage closet. I was in this makeshift room. And ironically, a kid that I went to high school with, his mother was my nurse, and she was so kind to me. But they didn't know what to do with me. And so I had the baby. My sister-in-law was there with me, and she was wonderful. And, I mean, it was hard. And after I wrote him a note before we left the hospital, and I said, I loved you enough to have you. And it's because I love you that I gave you away, basically. And I put it in the diaper bag for her to find later. But they had to stay with us. They couldn't, there's something called an interstate compact when you adopt. So you have to let California release the baby, and they were stationed in Air Force Base in Nevada. Nevada has to say, baby can come. So they had to stay with us for 3 or 4 days, 5 days. I don't even know how long it was. And there's no worse feeling than laying in bed at night and your breast milk is coming in and the baby is crying and you just have to lay in bed. And her father, who was a wonderful man, but he was scared. He was, I think, very, very scared that I think her family was scared about the whole thing. And I remember
it could go bad and you could change
I
your
was in the
mind.
hospital and I was rocking him and I was talking to him and I was bawling my eyes out. I was just telling him everything that I wanted for him. And her father walked in and took him from me and said, you shouldn't be doing this. And I said, I haven't signed anything yet. And I took him back and I had no intention on keeping him, but I wanted my moment. And, there were some other issues further down the road with her family when he was a little bit older. But, everyone made peace and, you know what I mean? Time heals. Time heals. And I was never intrusive in their lives. That was their child. Like, that resonated with me. And it resonated with me when I became a mother, and I went, oh, biology means very little.
It does.
Biology means very little.
Right, it does. I mean, it means some. There's some things, but it's most
Yeah, it's
of
that
it.
nurture versus nature. But
Yes, yes. Okay, so that leads us then, if I'm not skipping anything.
Anything else we missed?
Right.
in there?
I'm sure we have.
I was like, holy cow. For me, from 15 to 18, I think I played basketball.
Maybe got a speeding ticket.
Yeah.
Broke curfew.
Not sure if
That was
anything
the
else
trauma.
happened. Yeah. So, okay. So, obviously, this led you to your involvement with adoption. And
By
then-
happenstance, yeah.
Yeah. And that's where it seems to come from a lot of people. They get involved in things like this that are very important because you now sit there going, you've experienced all this stuff. You've experienced all these things that I'm sure it was either subconsciously or consciously as you're going through it going, there's got to be a better way to do this and to handle this than putting me in a closet and having all these things go on.
Absolutely, yeah.
And don't you think that's something that was kind of going? And you said, "Listen, I've experienced this firsthand, and I've got to somehow be a focal point of getting this better."
So I was with a guy that was in the Air Force, and he got stationed in California. So we came back to California with him. And across the street was this wonderful Guamanian lady. We called her Mama Ling. And she was raising her grandchildren. And we were talking, and the reason she was raising her grandchildren is that at the time, Shelley and her Mama Ling's son, they had a drug problem, and they were on the streets, and Shelley was pregnant again. And she said, I can't raise another baby. And I shared with her my adoption story. Is this an option? We just talked, 2 women talking. About 1 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings, and I think it's about 95. And I answer my phone, and it's Mama Ling, and she says, Shelley had the babies. And I said, babies? She said, it's twins, a boy and a girl. And they want to talk to you. They want to find an adoptive family. I didn't have any idea what to do, so I got the yellow pages out. And I found a number that said, Adoption Facilitation Service 24/7. And I called, and a woman named Nancy answered the phone. And I introduced myself, and I helped her with that adoption from where I was, coordinated, introduced the adoptive parents, and I helped her with it. And I thought, God, that was so, soul satisfying for me.
It felt good.
Spitting. And she called me about a week later, and she said, you have to come and work with me. She said, you just get it. And so that started sort of my career. I commuted to Walnut Creek, and I did very well. And, here's the thing. When you call and you're scared and you're pregnant, and you have somebody on the other end saying, I've done it, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's huge. Absolutely
It's huge. And I was very involved. I mean, I can't even tell you. I've been to hundreds of births. And it's not just that. It's I will take you to your doctor appointment. I will take you for groceries. I will be there to hold your hand while you give birth. I've had birth mothers live with me because of circumstances. Even after they've done their placement, 3 or 4 years later, I had a wonderful birth mom who was relocating from California to Arizona. She lived with me for a while. So I stay in touch with these gals. They're not just a number to me.
You worked on both sides. So people wanting to adopt would contact you?
Yeah, people wanting to adopt paid the salary, and I would help match them with birth mothers and stay with them through the process until placement. So it was direct placement, independent adoption, generally open adoption, and we'd work with agencies and attorneys, of course, to make things legal. But I was the emotion of the adoption. I had more adoptive parents change their mind than I did birth mothers change their mind.
Really? Yeah. So you mentioned a few hands that are in the pot. So you've got you that is working it. You've got an agency.
I mean, there's a number of ways to do it, right? So people that hired facilitators wanted to do it a little bit faster.
Which was you, a
and
facilitator.
More personal, right? Like people would say, "Oh, you charge so much." I'm like, "Well, it's like going to Walmart or a boutique that knows exactly what you want.
Right.
You get what you pay for. When you call me, I know you. I know your situation. When you call agency with 700 people, whoever opens your file is going to kind of peruse through and say, "Oh, no action." You know, with me, it's you can call me any time, day or night, and if it doesn't go right, I'm still going to pick up the phone. And I'm going to walk you through it. So it was my hands-onness, I think, that led to my success.
And talk about, you wrote this book, you're a co-writer.
I'm a co-writer.
Yeah.
We sold 100 copies.
Is that it?
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Because we're going to help you sell some more here.
Yeah,
we're going to get
That's
this
right.
out.
We're going to put
Well,
it's
there,
on
there
Amazon.
was an
guys.
agency in Nevada that made it required reading for their
Oh,
people.
wow.
Yeah, it was written by Susan Romig, was an adoption attorney, myself as a birth mother and facilitator, and then Deborah Vinson ran a Texas agency, Adoption Alliance, for a number of years.
Okay, and it's called Empowered Adoption, and I got to read a little bit of it. I read the intro of the, and I'm forgetting the young woman's name that wrote the intro, but she talks about her experience going through it, and it was fascinating because, you know, I think Jay may have told you, but I was adopted. And I kind of went through, I can go from the other side of it, being the one that, you know, was not planned. And, you know, when I was born, it was a
Closed
two people.
Closed adoption?
Yeah, it was closed adoption. This is in the 60s, late 60s. And so it was a couple or two married people that had affairs, and I come along, and you talked about the whole hiding it. Years later, I wrote my biological mother, and we wrote back and forth a little bit. And I'll tell you the crazy thing real quick, and I don't want to go too long on this, but when you're at an orphanage, you know, the birth mother, when she had me, wrote some letters to me, and the orphanage will keep them. And then they wait till you're, I think I was 21 or 22, and then you're allowed, they'll contact you. They keep in touch or whatever. And at least they kept in touch with my mom and my adopted mom and, or true mom and parents. And they said, hey, you know, got these letters. Whenever he's ready, contact us. And so I remember finally deciding, okay,
I'm ready.
I want to know. And so contacted them, get the letters from her that she had written when I was born. So it kind of went through some things and what happened, and I kind of find out. But, and this is, well, we'll get into this in a minute when we talk about the abortion deal and stuff. But in the letters, it was if abortion was legal, you wouldn't be here. Yeah. And so, So, you know, I'm very thankful for the, you know, pro-life folks. And so the people that choose to not and choose to put kids up for adoption. But
So she basically was saying that law is the reason you're alive. Okay.
yeah. But the story is very similar because she told me in the letter that she got pregnant. She already had 3 kids. She was married. The father, the biological father, was married. He had 3 kids. They had an affair. She gets pregnant. They put me up for adoption, but she did not tell her kids about any of it. Of course, they were younger, so she's not going to say anything. But same thing. This is in the late 60s, so she starts showing. And they did the old, hey, I'm just, you know, mom is sick. Yeah. And so she leaves for a while. She's gone a month or two, has the baby, comes back home. Nobody's the wiser at home.
Nobody talks about it.
Nobody talks about it. And so then, but you were talking about your, I guess it would be was it your cousin that you gave, that your son was raised by? It was
my brother.
Your brother. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
your
So
brother.
he's my nephew. So it's funny because our kids call each other, he calls them his cousins, sister cousins, and they call him their brother cousin. So anyway,
That's good.
I'm Aunt Mom. No, I'm kidding.
And this is why I'm so interested in all this, because the mother chose not to tell her kids that she ever had me.
Yeah.
So the kids never knew. And then when we started communicating, at one point we would send letters back and forth, but you do it through the orphanage. So she doesn't know where I live. I don't know where she lives. And so every time I'd write her, we go through the orphanage, and all back. Well, she starts putting on there, you know, things about, you know, which was really weird. I'm living in Rockwall at the time when I chose to do it. And she's like, well, you have a half brother that lives in, I'm not even sure where you live, but he lives in a town called Allen, Texas. And another one lives in Mesquite, Texas. And I'm sitting there like, holy cow, I got half brothers running around.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I was getting to was through our correspondence, she decides I need to tell my kids, even though they're all adults, they've all had their families on their own. It went horrible.
So she's dropping bombs on
She's
them.
dropping
They were
bombs.
angry.
They were
'Cause she
very
lied to them.
angry. Yes.
Because she lied to them.
And that's where our contact stopped because it destroyed her so much that she said, this is the last letter you're getting from me. My family is devastated. They stopped talking.
Yeah.
It destroyed them. And I never told her to tell them or anything. I mean, but she just decided I need to. I'm
She
sure there's
needed
guilt.
I think probably she wanted to bring you into this and meet you and have a relationship, so she had to.
Oh, you think that
say,
is that what
I
it was?
100% think so.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have never said anything to my
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah,
on the flip side, my kids would hear me on the phone with birth mothers talking about the child. They always knew I placed a child for adoption. They did not know it was Sean, and
wow.
I would have named him Ryan. So I
Never thought about that.
I
but
d-
you
I
have your own
didn't-
ideas.
Yeah.
couldn't tell them everything because they didn't tell him everything, right? And that wasn't my story to tell.
Right.
So my kids knew that I'd placed a child for adoption, and I would have named him Ryan if I had kept him. So I referred to him as Ryan. And my kids were a little bit angry when it came out.
Yeah.
And he found out, and I had to sit them down, and I had to say, that I had, and it's your cousin Sean, and it was, and then it was a little bit
How
of
old
like,
were they when you told them?
So he was 13, so Kirby was, I don't think Summer was alive. So they were probably 9 and 10.
Okay. All right.
It's a little too younger to really understand
Oh, they were
why
mad. No.
why you had to keep
Well,
this.
Yeah, no,
imagine
they
9
got
and
it.
10, though.
Yeah, they got
Yeah.
it.
Things are a lot more black and white at 9 and 10.
Yeah, they got it. But then it was kind of like, oh, it makes sense because there's just a lot of similarities.
And that's the thing where it's these secrets, and these are big secrets.
Secrets keep you sick.
Yeah, they do.
the
And it
darkness.
is now on my end. It wasn't. I'm just doing my thing,
Yeah.
But on her end, what she had gone through, and
Yeah.
then the only person I met was I eventually found my biological father. And so he, I visited him. Gosh, I guess it was about 20 years ago. I contacted him and finally went to visit him. He lived in Arkansas, Monticello, Arkansas, and I met him once, and I met at his house, and I'm glad I only met him once. It was good.
So did you always know you were adopted? Was it
Yeah.
part of your story? Yeah.
About third grade, I was
Yeah.
told.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this real quick. This was the thing that from somebody that's been adopted. Even though I was young, I don't remember the orphanage or anything like that. But I know about all this and everything. But I'm doing a homework assignment, and somewhere along the assignment, I'm at home. Mom and Dad obviously are there, and I say something. Somewhere along the assignment, it's like, where do you get your eyes from? Who gave you this? Who gave you that?
Yeah.
Who do you look like? So I'm asking them, and even as a third grader, you kind of realize, what's their deal? They're acting weird about this thing.
You sensed that?
Oh yeah,
They were getting
a kid can
squirmy.
sense, yeah. A
Like,
kid, you would have sensed if your parents are acting different and
Yeah.
you're little.
Yeah.
And you kind of know there's the side look and then at one point I maybe not remembering it right, but I feel like there was me and Mom are going to talk in the kitchen real quick, whatever, something like that.
Something was up.
Something was wrong.
Yeah.
So they kind of said okay, and they told me. Now they did it in a great way when they
Yeah.
said, okay, I'm going to let you know that Mom didn't have you. You were adopted. And by third grade, you kind of know what adopted is and stuff. It's already a shock that you're like, whoa, wait a second, and that you're not, I wasn't born. Because my mom did eventually have a child biologically. They didn't think she was going to be able to have kids. Yeah, and then she had a kid. And so I have a younger sister. And so, anyway, I just remember... they did it great, and they tell the story like we were there, we talked, we knew about this, and they said something to the effect of, "We chose you. You were so special. We chose you.
Yeah.
That's how special you were, and all that." And so as a kid, you're like, all right, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So I go to school the next day, and I tell my buddies. Now it's third grade buddies, boys, and I tell them, my parents like, I said I was special. I don't know about you
cool,
morons, you idiots, but I'm special
They
because
didn't choose
yeah,
y'all.
y'all didn't choose. You just plopped in there. They chose me, and I'll never forget. My buddy goes, "Yeah, but somebody else gave you up." You know, and I remember
Who is this asshole? What's his name? We're going to call him out right
He's
now.
living in a trailer park somewhere, and he's got 5 ex-wives.
he was my best friend forever. He was a good friend. But anyway, it was that moment of, oh yeah. I went from the penthouse to the outhouse really quickly. but it was it's a shocking deal, but it is something that you know, we'll say Ryan, because that's what you want to call
Ryan,
him.
Ryan.
But and I don't know, because Ryan's probably the same way.
His name's Sean. I mean,
It's Sean, but but Sean's probably the same way in that he doesn't remember any of this stuff going on. He just knows he's raised by mom and
his
dad.
parents are his parents.
His parents are his parents. That's the same with me.
I'm
but
his aunt.
there is a part of you that knows somebody didn't want me. Somebody, you know.
Well, and we had that conversation.
Yeah.
Like, and the great thing about him being like 13 was that he could ask intelligent, and he's one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. And I think it's because he was also raised with my mother, who was the most intelligent person I've ever met. So, you know, we were able to have those conversations. And, you know, why did you do it? And so any questions he had. But, you know, I remember going to visit them, and we'd go to the grocery store in their little podunk town at the Air Force Base where my brother was stationed, and we'd be there together, and people like, oh my gosh, you guys look exactly alike. And he's like, you know, I hear that a lot. I'm like, he looks like his dad. It's my brother.
Yeah.
There's a
Right. That's
You
so
know?
funny.
Yeah.
But we would get the opposite. We would get if I was with my parents or my dad, it would be like, oh man, you and your dad really resemble each other. I'm like, really?
Okay, so my daughter Summer always hears, you look just like your mom. You look just like your mom. And
she
she was
does.
about 11. She was tired of it. And somebody goes, oh, but you look just like your mom. She goes, isn't it weird? I'm adopted.
I remember that.
And they were like, what? And she's not. But she was like, shut them up.
That's funny. But yeah, it is a subconscious, whatever it is, there is an inferiority thing that will stay
God
with
knows
you.
what he's doing.
Yes, he does.
And he put you where you need to be.
Oh, then you sit there. I finally called one time. I decided, I'll never forget this. It was a Memorial Day weekend. Me and Autumn had just gotten married. We're sitting in our house. And I was just a bug up my butt. Like, okay, we were talking about it. I'm calling her. She had sent her number on one of the letters. I called. She wasn't there, but I talked to my sister, like half sister. And I didn't tell her what was going on, but I was just like, hey, is Marilyn there? And then, no, she's not in.
Is your heart beating like?
Oh, dude, you're sweating. It's like you before a podcast. It was just crazy nervous. And so, anyway, but I never talked to her because she wasn't there, and I didn't have the guts to call back again, so I never did. But you do have this. Now, Sean has the great opportunity to stay within his family and to see all these things.
Yeah.
As a kid that's not around, you wonder all the time.
Who do I look like? Where
Who do I
I get
look
my
like? Why
eyes?
am I this? I'm an artist. Why? Nobody in my family.
Right.
And the crazy thing is, we've had, I think there's a couple kids have been adopted in my extended family. All the ones that have been adopted are artists, almost like, because I grew up Air Force. My dad was Air Force.
Mine too.
Yeah. And so anyway, that was, and my mom and dad met at the Pentagon. They both worked at the Pentagon at the time. And the people that had the affair worked at the, it was all this kind of whole weird stuff.
Oh, it's military.
It's military. Yeah.
Very
exactly.
military.
Yeah.
That is.
I mean, you know what they call TDY? Temporarily divorced, y'all. So,
That's greatness.
Yeah.
Now,
But
so
anyway.
what do you think if you look really deep, what did you want from your mother? What was the core of what you wanted? Did you want her to say something?
I wanted her to say, I remember growing up when I found I was adopted, the fantasy you would have would be like, oh man, what if Roger Staubach's my dad?
Yeah.
What if, that's always, what if Dolly Parton's my real mom? Stuff like that. And I remember my parents have been outstanding, for this. They were always so supportive. And when they told me, they said, whenever you want to find out, let us know. And we'll help you. We'll do whatever.
They were at peace with it.
Oh, they were at peace with it. They were great. You couldn't find better people in the world, and that's a God deal again. And that's the way it goes. But what did I want to hear from her? Man, I wanted to keep you, but the authorities took you away.
Yeah.
I wanted to keep.
I messed up.
Yeah. So the ironic thing is, she admits to when she gave me up on one of the letters. She said something to the effect of, I had really considered keeping you, but your father, the biological father, was the one that was adamant about putting you up for adoption and da-da-da. And so I went along with it. Then I finally meet my father, the biological father. one of the first things he says, yeah, I wanted to keep you, but it was your biological mom that wanted
so
to.
we're pointing
Yes,
fingers.
yes. It was like, all right,
You're
and
like,
so.
did anybody? Like,
Well, how did I end up
thank
here?
God my parents wanted me.
Yeah, exactly. That was the deal. So both y'all wanted me, but yet it didn't work out, which I'm glad, because
course.
you look at what,
Can't go
Yeah.
back.
no, I would have grown up in like Milwaukee. How horrible would that have been?
I have
Yeah.
to tell you, kind of an ironic thing is my brother and sister-in-law, Sean's parents, down the road, Mary's sister was killed in a car accident, and she had a son and never named the father. And so they became his legal guardians. And I don't think they ever legally adopted him, but he is their child. I mean, he was 3 when he came to them, and he's an adult married. I don't even know how old Jacob is, probably 31 or 32. So it's just ironic that they have 2 sons, and they are biologically related to each of them.
To each other.
Yeah, and I think that's cool.
crazy.
I think
That
it's
is
cool.
neat.
Now,
That's cool.
obviously, it's a very cool thing to get adopted when you have parents that are just outstanding, as Sean has gotten and I got. There's some negatives to it, but the one really cool thing is when you go to the doctor and you got to fill out all the paperwork, and they ask for your history, your
Unknown.
health history. Yeah,
Unknown.
Oh, you
Unknown.
just get to.
adopted. Yeah, just put a line through like 3 pages. Don't know. Let's move along.
Yeah,
that's a great
that's
thing.
That's a
Yeah.
silver lining.
Yeah.
Now, one thing with the work that you've done, and you've done so many adoptions,
I have.
and it's always, these are always in the movies. The birth mother
coming back
holds
to steal
the
the
baby,
baby,
or the
baby.
birth mother holds the baby and is, I can't do it.
Yeah.
It
I'm
happens.
walking.
But
Has that happened to you, and how did that go down?
I can count on 2 hands how many women have kept their babies. It does happen, but here's what happens when I was in the situation, and I would say, tell me what has changed since you made the decision to place your baby for adoption. Do you have stable housing? Do you have an income? I would walk them through it because you're emotional and you're in the hospital where you're getting weighted on hand and foot, and I want to take a nap, take the baby, and bring me another Coke, and bring me this, and bring me that.
Yeah.
It's not the reality. But I will say that most of the birth mothers I dealt with, there was a handful that were first-time mothers. Most of them are single mothers, and they know the reality of a paycheck running out before the end of the month, and that beautiful little baby has a lot of needs, and that they also have children that call them mommy. So I would say 90% of the women who placed children for adoption were already mothers, and they knew what that meant.
Okay, that makes sense.
So as hard as it was, because it is not easy, the hardest thing I've ever done in my life,
because you're facing
it
the adoptive parents.
reality of raising a baby, you have to stay focused on the reality of it. Is this the reality that I want, or is this best for the baby?
Did you find yourself balancing between trying to talk someone out of that?
I never did. When a woman I've had women contact me who would be fabulous mothers, and I would weigh it out before they got involved with adoptive parents. Sounds like you want to keep your baby. Sounds like this is not something you want to do. Let's find a way for you to keep your baby if this is what you want to do.
So it was not your job.
It's not my job to talk you into placing your baby. I'm not
Yeah.
strong-arming anybody.
How much more? How much are you involved once the adoption's done?
I could call 15 birth moms right now that placed 20 years ago.
Really?
Yeah,
That's great.
I'm starting to get wedding invitations.
Yeah.
Wow.
I on birthdays will get, so and so turned 21 today, and it wouldn't have happened without you. So
Yeah.
I stay involved, because they're people to me.
And
It's not.
you've had a little niche of working with some celebrity clients, haven't
I
you?
have.
Okay,
That I
can you
cannot
name them?
talk- I cannot.
Who? And tell us
I
every
cannot.
detail.
Do like this. Do like Arnold.
We gotta guess.
Arnold Borgenazer. You didn't really say his name. You just
I
say
can tell one funny story. I mean,
Brad
there's a
Flitt.
Bangelina Holy. No, I'm kidding. No, I did not. I did not help her with an
But
adoption.
there's no way you weren't involved with that. They've adopted 35.
Yeah, that would have
Asian
been a
kids.
full-time career
Yeah.
for her.
Yeah.
And I'd be married to Brad Pitt right now.
Oh,
I'd be
yeah.
like, come
She'd have
on.
snatched him. Yeah.
Come on now. And there are some celebrity type people that I've worked with who are very open about their adoption. Most of them are not. But there was one, and I won't say names.
Come on now.
She was a singer that had maybe a hit or two who thought very highly of herself.
It's Dolly Parton, and that was
It
my
was
mom.
Dolly Parton. And she changed her name, but then put pictures of herself on the red carpet. And I remember it was a Friday before a holiday weekend, and everyone wants an update before the weekend. And I was the only one in the office, and I was busier than a one-legged can-can dancer. So I answered, adoption facilitation, can you please hold? Put it on hold. Call hangs up, calls back. Please hold, please hold. And finally I pick up and she goes, do you know who this is? And I said, yeah. I don't remember what name she used. I'm like, it's Lisa Cunningham. And I put her on hold because she used a fake name.
Right.
And I was like, you're ridiculous.
Wow.
You're
So
ridiculous.
they've often felt like they needed special treatment.
She did. The other people I worked with who
Yeah, but think about it. Their whole life is special treatment, though. How are
I
they
mean,
going
here's
to
the thing.
adjust?
I have dealt with normal people like me, blue collar workers, and I've dealt with celebrities, and I've dealt with ultra wealthy people. She was the only person that was nasty. Nobody else
That's crazy.
ever treated me like that.
Wow.
And it made it very hard for me to speak to birth mothers positively about her because I see the worst. I see the worst of both sides. I see people who are going through infertility, which is gut-wrenching. It is gut-wrenching
Yes, it is.
when you're going through this. And I see women who are carrying a baby for 40 weeks and handing it to somebody. It's gut-wrenching. I see people at their worst.
And we've talked about,
And
both
you
of
have
us
to
have
balance it.
gone through the infertility deal and stuff, and it's just, terrible.
Yeah.
And the highs and lows are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
one of the hardest things about that is
not me
seeing
and Jay
people-
together having a baby.
It wasn't ours.
You with your wife and me with my wife. People are confused. I know we have a liberal here, and she's all on
Hey,
board
listen,
with
I
us.
helped a gay family adopt once, and we were talking about what are you looking for, and this, that, and the other, and race, and he goes, it doesn't matter to us. It's not like anyone's going to believe we gave birth. And I was like,
They're not going to blame me.
you're right. You're right.
For the record, Jay was going to be the one to give the birth. But anyway, go ahead, Jay.
Well, we knew he wanted my genes, of course. That was
Okay, now it's getting
but you know, one
uncomfortable.
of the hardest parts about that is when you would run across couples who did not want to get pregnant.
Yes.
That was always really
Yes.
difficult.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh gosh, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
We were not wanting
No,
this.
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
always
And you're doing
so-
everything. You're doing the shots. You're
Yes.
doing the books.
Standing
You're
on
going to
your
doctor
head,
every
right,
week.
you're
Yeah.
You've got
howling
the
at the
clock.
moon naked. Like,
Well,
what's going on?
the clock, the ovulation clock.
Well, right.
And
I mean,
it was
it's,
always
it's,
like, you would think you'd be like, yes. But you're
No.
like, oh,
it becomes
God.
business. at
It
that
is
point.
business.
It
You're a
is
mule.
business.
horrible.
I used to tell a lot of that. I'm
Yeah.
a mule now.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like, oh, the clock. I'm like, it's Cowboys Eagles right now. I can't do it right now.
Yes, you are.
And it's
Yeah.
like, now.
Chop, chop.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right. Halftime. We can do halftime.
It'll be too late.
Yeah.
You know, and I used to have to ask adoptive parents because they pay all this money and they're not ready to adopt. And I would have to say, you have to decide that you're ready to not be pregnant and you're ready to be a parent.
Yeah.
And there is a huge chasm between I'm ready to not be pregnant and I'm ready to be a parent.
Right.
And you have to lay this to rest. It's not going to work.
Right. Well, it's like the wedding and marriage thing. The women that all they've been wanting is the wedding, but then when the marriage starts, it hits rock bottom pretty quickly, or the guy too, and all that. Where there's two different worlds there. You got to be ready for the marriage, even though you
I
have
mean,
the
they
wedding.
say men marry women hoping they'll never change, and women marry men hoping they'll change them.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Or
Why does that not work
or
out?
women use sex to get love, and men use love to get sex.
That's right.
We're just.
My son the
know,
other day
two
said
different
something about he
things.
was worried about if he dated somebody. He goes, she's going to change me. I'm like, son, let me just tell you right now, I don't care who you find, she's going to change you. She's going to give it a
And
big
you
shot.
should let her.
Yeah, I was like, just go with it, just do it.
Let her mold you. Let her
There's
mold you.
there's not a woman out there that ain't going to change you, man. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to switch to what I feel like is a paradox in you, and I know you don't.
I
And I think
know.
this is a discussion.
We'll see what he thinks.
I'm hearing these stories and what you've done for these families, these women, and it's just joyous to hear these stories, But to hear you talk about, and this is, you are very, very emotional and strong. You have strong feelings about the choice, the pro-choice.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, wait a minute, you can't do both of those. That's my first thought. I mean, I know it's so much deeper than that.
Sure.
But you know what I mean? It's like, wait, you spent your life,
Hit me with
to,
it.
to, and I'm not judging that. But can you see how I
I'm
could
over
be
here
like,
taking
what-
the gloves off right now, Jay.
But do you know what I mean? It's,
Put my helmet on.
Can you see how I could be like, wait a minute, you have to choose one of those.
Did you know how often I'll post something about being pro-choice or, about abortion rights, and I will get DMs about what a baby killer I am?
And you've been very vocal.
Oh, I am vocal.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're not, I'm hoping, that you're not for baby killing. You're for the option for the mother to have that option. Is that what the
choice.
pro-choice is?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You don't like abortion.
I don't get to make decisions for something that affects your household. You, June down the street having an abortion does not affect me in the least.
Well, it might. If that kid, ends up becoming president and then changing
Or
things.
he could grow up and be a serial
Or
killer
be a serial
and slaughter
killer.
me in my
Yeah,
sleep.
exactly.
What's your
I don't have opinions about houses. If what you are doing doesn't cause harm to me,
Mm-hmm.
it's none of my business.
But what if it causes harm to a 4-year-old child? Is it your business? Do we need to have laws that stop that? And
It's
you know
called
where I'm going with-
homicide.
You know where-
That's called a homicide.
And then that's the road that we go down
No.
to. Where is it homicide? At what,
Nobody's pinching a head off as the baby comes out of the birth canal because the nose is ugly. It's not realistic. That is a fantasy that people want to portray to make people who are pro-choice seem like villains. I'm not a villain. And what I venture to say to people who are so staunchly anti-abortion is, what skin in the game do you have? Because I have years of skin in the game. I have gone into crack houses and I have picked women up who are high as a kite and I've taken them to rehab and I've held their hands while they gave birth and I've laid with them while they cry after they sign those paperwork. So what skin in the game do you have other than telling me I can't have autonomy over my body?
Okay, but this is the way I come at it, though. Okay, you say you have autonomy over your body, but that's another body that's in there, and that
So
body
then it
has
becomes,
rights.
when does life begin, right? So if you're Jewish, life doesn't begin until breath, right? In the Bible, it talks about breath, and I can't remember the exact word, but it talks about breath, and that's when the soul and life begins. So, it's the same thing as saying this clump of embryos that's in my body and this clump of embryos in an IVF clinic who may or may not be viable are the same thing. They're trying to outlaw IVF now
Yes.
because the laws are without common sense and they are too staunch.
Well, I don't want to go to the common sense part because I think you can go to religious beliefs and all that, but I think the common sense part is if there is a heartbeat, that is life.
Okay. So if we're gonna talk like about that, right?
That's
Is,
what I want to
is
talk
Jesus going to put more value over a fetus than a mother? Because in the state of Texas, doctors won't touch you. I have an unviable pregnancy that's going to kill me and take away my fertility. Sorry, can't do it.
Yeah, but that's the other thing that people go to all the time. Those are not super common.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
No, it doesn't. It
because
absolutely doesn't.
here's the deal. There are always options. Like we have laws that if you kill somebody, if you kill somebody in self-defense, it's okay to kill that person. It ain't like every killing you're in prison.
So I don't believe a clump of cells is human. So if it is, then I want to collect child support upon conception. I want a social security card for my taxes. I want to be able to drive in the HOV lane. I don't get to do any of those things.
But you're saying a clump of cells, but a clump of cells that have a heartbeat, they have fingernails, they have
potential.
feelings.
But
Sure, it has potential.
I want to take
And
this back
It's not
to,
a human. It can't survive without me.
And
Well, it can't survive without you once it's out either.
Well, it can go to adoptive parents.
See, I want to take a step back to IVF because this is
Yeah.
something that hits home for me.
Yeah.
Me and Allison
Yeah,
did
yeah,
2
yeah.
rounds of IVF.
Yeah.
And we've had this discussion because it's all I've thought about it often, and I'm curious to your thoughts on it. And I'm not sure exactly now what at this age and 15 years has gone by where I feel. But basically, when we had IVF the first time, they show you photographs, and there was about 12 cells. And it is an embryo. It started with the sperm entering one egg, and they start to expand. What happens in an embryo that they know is not going to make it? They're different sizes, and when I would look at them, they know that's not really viable.
Yeah.
Could it happen? It happened to Octomom. They didn't think maybe one or
Right.
two had made it.
Right.
They all made it.
Right.
But our doctor said, I could tell when they were ready to put those embryos into Allison, the doctor's face said it all. And they send you photos along the way. And you're like, oh my gosh, they're growing. It's like
Yeah.
there's 6 of them. Oh my, this one has 14. It's an amazing feeling to see those photographs. And he said, yeah, these, and he explained medically why they were not good.
But he
Clump
wanted
of
to manage
cells.
the expectations.
Yeah, and he did, and we left just like, and we just kind of knew. We knew from the, but he did put at that point. I think there was only 5, and he put all 5 in, and I think he knew not a one of them had a chance. Most likely, there's never for sure, and she did not get pregnant. We weren't, and we did it again, and this time he said, now these 3 look pretty good. These 3 look pretty good. These are horrible. And you could, at that point, after looking at the several photos, it's real easy to tell which ones are not looking good.
Yeah.
And so he said, let's do these 3. And we said, okay. Because at that point, you're like, whatever you say, doctor, you just want to have that baby, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to judge somebody who has babies whenever they want. But when you would do anything to have that baby, we didn't really think about what meant to at this point leave the others in the lab. We're going to go with those 3, and we did, and we ended up having twins. Thank God it worked. We had twins. The 3rd they put in did not take, if you will, and then the question comes: what do you want to do with the other 4? They are they alive? You know, the doctor doesn't present that to you by any means. They just want to say, what do you want to do with it? They did say these would never be a choice to give to put in another woman who needs an embryo.
They couldn't be donor embryos.
They were not going to be donor. They would
Right.
not do it.
Right.
Do you want to pay at the time, I want to say $150 a month
To keep them.
for them forever? And I guess later we could have said, well, yeah, because then once they're frozen, it's even worse. Even great embryos
Yeah.
frozen, it drops
Quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember just not even thinking twice about it. I don't think the word dispose was used. I can't remember the word that was used, but they were disposed of. I believe 4 of them.
Did they have a heartbeat when they're sitting in there?
I'm sure they did not, because
Right.
it was 8
No,
cells.
you don't get a heartbeat till
But
about 8 weeks.
Right.
why are you choosing heartbeat? Because I know there's
Because
probably,
anything that has a heartbeat is alive. Anything that doesn't have a heartbeat is dead.
I don't think a lot of people would agree with that.
Oh,
Am I
really?
wrong? I bet if you ask many a pastor out there, he would say the second that sperm enters the egg,
Maybe.
that's life.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is life.
But I'm going to
Just like
we talked about common sense. How do we decide if somebody's alive or dead? The heartbeat. That's how we decide it.
But
Period.
where did you get that?
It's life. It's like
But what about my
if your
cells?
heart,
What about our baby cells that were growing every day? What was that?
that's the process to get to the heartbeat. It's like anything else. It's like anything else that leads to something.
Yeah.
You know, like this computer wasn't a computer when it was sitting over there with microchips. But once they put the microchips together and boom, once it started showing things on the screen, this thing became a computer. Now it's a computer. So it's the same thing as a child. And I come back to this. We can argue about this all day.
Yeah.
But the point is, if we don't know, why are we killing it, or why are we stopping it? Because you're making a huge decision on something that you're not. Most things we do, we want to know we want to be educated on it before we all of a sudden just say, let's end it. Most of the time, it's like, I want to make the right decision here. And if we don't know, rarely do we do something like, gosh, I don't know if he's going to make it or not. Well, let's see. You know, you don't do it that way.
So you would not say we had 4 abortions when they flushed those 4 embryos down.
No.
You realize there's people that would say that.
I agree.
And do
I
say
understand that.
And they're trying to take
outlaw
that right
IVF
away
right
from
now.
you.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's states that are shutting IVF transfers down because, much like the abortion law, if something doesn't work, they're going to hold doctors liable. And the way it's written, there's just no clarity in what doctors can do, and that's wrong. There
That
needs
is.
to be clarity.
That's
and
right.
the mother's life there has to be very clear language that says, yes, you can do it. And what we hear the word abortion and we forget, it is medical care. A miscarriage is a spontaneous abortion, right? It's a spontaneous abortion. And I think the thing that we miss a lot is, yes, we have very restrictive abortion laws in Texas now. Guess who it doesn't affect? It doesn't affect me. It wouldn't affect you if something happened to one of your daughters. It wouldn't affect a senator whose daughter's at A&M and got pregnant accidentally. Because you know what? I'd be in New
'Cause
Mexico.
I've got money to go to the
and I
next
could-
state
What
and-
it does is it just further marginalizes marginalized people who can't afford to go anywhere to have an abortion, who can't afford the kids they have.
But doesn't it come back to, we know what leads to.
Okay,
This
so
is-
let's do that. Let's talk about pulling the funding for Planned Parenthood because we don't want to fund abortions. Planned Parenthood quit funding abortions in the 70s.
They don't fund abortions anymore.
They haven't funded abortions since the 70s, but we have pulled all their federal funding. So now women can't get free or cheap birth control.
Right.
And we can't get pap smears, and
Right.
we can't get mammograms. So what you've done is taken women who couldn't afford it in the first place, who have husbands who don't give a crap. They want it when they want it, and I'm going to take it when I want it. And all they're doing is pumping out babies, and there's not a damn thing they can do about it.
Right,
So what
right.
you've done is just further marginalized women.
But I think the thing,
So
though, that,
give me free birth control and quit taxing tampons. with the pink
You know, you
tags.
can make your own tampons.
Right.
Yeah, you make them
Right.
for me. I'm not making tampons, and I'm not washing out pads and hanging them up in the sun to dry. And I shouldn't pay pink tax. Thank you. I guess I am a liberal.
Yeah, I was going to
I'm
say.
like, this is going. Your little stint about
even
I'm not
Michael
a-
Moore is like, geez. Oh.
The DNC just revoked my card.
But I think these conversations are important.
Right. I'm happy to have it, and I
Yes,
agree with
and
a
I
lot
don't-
of what she's saying. But
Yes.
what also comes back to is, I think again, and we go to emotion a lot as opposed to, whatever you want to call facts. I think a fact is heartbeat is alive. Heartbeat. Anytime we do
And
anything,
I wasn't challenging you on that. It's curious that that's a marker
And
because.
but that's how you judge life and death, though. I don't understand
But
how
I
that's
also
curious.
want-
But I
to-
feel like my 8 cells, my 4 babies that had 8 to 12 cells were alive.
right.
And they might have been, is what my point
Yeah,
is. They might have been.
They
We
had
don't
the potential
know.
for life.
We don't know. And so if you don't know something, why do you get rid of it?
Yeah,
That's my point. And we also have jumped into we have these problems because we've made decisions beforehand that we shouldn't have made in the first place. We're doing something else that is very controversial or could be, is, in my opinion, life-threatening and killing because you made a decision before of something you probably shouldn't have done in the first place anyway.
Yeah.
And so we get mad at the people, and you sit there and you drink a bunch of beers and go driving. We're going to get that guy in jail because he made a bad decision before he went out there and did that.
Sure.
That's the same thing
Yeah.
with unprotected sex or whatever you want to call it. That's why there's a point, and as a religious person, that's why there is a lot of scripture on wait till you're married. And not that any of us have done that, I'm not saying that yeah, exactly. All of us are guilty.
You were a virgin on your wedding night.
I was, but I
Autumn
know
said
y'all
you-
weren't. I know y'all weren't. No.
Well, I certainly wasn't.
Dude, I went to Texas State. You do the math. But anyway,
A question I've got for you is: can you see and sympathize with someone who feels like when that baby is removed from that woman's body, it is an absolute tragedy. It is a death. It is horrifying.
So-
it tears you apart. Can you relate to that?
I've never had an abortion, so I can't speak from it firsthand. I have driven people for abortions. I have stayed with them. I've cared for them after abortions, and I don't know one woman who has skipped into an abortion clinic saying,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah.
yay,
It's not-
let's have an abortion in wings." Nobody does that.
But that's what's dangerous about these recent demonstrations where and we've got extremes on both sides.
Well, that's the problem with our country.
Yeah.
Is common sense is out the window.
But you see the extreme liberals
respect
who
is
are,
out the window.
I am glad I can have an abortion. I will have, like they are going to the extreme with their
they
posters.
like to flaunt
and-
it at times.
Yeah,
And then
like
you have the
they
other
are
side
happy.
that is against
But then there's the
killing,
other
but then they're
side.
going to blow up and kill people because we're against
and
killing.
let's have the death penalty.
Well, and that's where I'm on the same thing. I'm against the death penalty, and
I am
because it,
If you're
it needs
against
to
death,
be
you're against death.
Right, and that's my point. That's where I come to. It ain't my right to kill somebody if they have a heartbeat and they're in the womb, or if they're 89 years old and they're on death row. It ain't my call to kill anybody.
It's
anything.
the hypocrisy that bothers me, I think,
It
more
is
than
a lot
anything.
of yeah.
And plus, if somebody's on death row, I want them to suffer here a long time
Yeah,
for what they've done. Death is an escape, and
Yeah.
so that's my deal too.
What I want to go to is, not to keep going back to my issue with IVF and those, but I think it's important to note there are people that might be sitting here that would be screaming at me that I let those 4 embryos go down.
I agree.
And so we're all using different time periods, right?
Well, we all do different
So-
things to make our point. It's like when you look at a political campaign, you look at the stats. Everybody's got stats to back themselves up. We all have our points. But, I mean, even to the point of, Aimee talked about we talked about the laws and these and that. Well, if you shoot a pregnant woman and kill her and the unborn baby, that's double homicide.
Yeah.
So the state, on one hand, if you allow abortion, okay, you killed a woman and it's double homicide. But if a doctor killed that baby, everything's fine.
But I'm not allowed to consider that fetus a human. I don't get to claim it on my taxes. I don't get to get child support from the father.
Right.
But if the,
I don't get to
and
put
that's
it on
the
my health
hypocrisy in
insurance.
the laws.
It's
Yeah,
a hypocrisy,
Right.
and that's
Now-
what bothers me the most.
let me
about
go
it.
to the morning after pill. There's a lot of controversy. The morning after, going back to my 8 cells, that's what it is. The morning after.
Well, it
Right.
just prevents
Right.
it prevents
But-
the embryo from implanting
Right.
in the uterus.
Right. So,
Causes a period.
So many will say the morning after is abortion.
And that's another one where
Many
I'm like,
do say
Well,
that.
you can't get the pill anymore, so it must be.
Right. I guess that's. I
You
think what
can't
it
get
comes
birth
down
control
to
cheap.
is
You
the
can't have this. You
definition.
can't have that. And it comes down to me about a bunch of men wanting to tell women what to do with their bodies.
now the men are wanting to tell women what to do about the other body that doesn't have a right. And that's the problem.
That's where I lose you.
yeah.
But-
Because,
and that's okay.
But you can lose me,
I know,
but
I
I'm
know.
the woman that has been married to men and had children with them,
Yeah.
and who was left to raise them alone without support.
But you always go to
Because
that.
nothing is done. Child support wasn't enforced, and I was left alone to raise my kids, and I did.
But
And
what
I did
about the
well.
guy
You
that
did it.
wants to keep the child, but the woman has decided to have the abortion? Nobody ever brings that side up. Nobody, and there's been a ton of men. I mean, we always make the man the bad guy on this. He's the bad guy because, he got her pregnant or whatever it is, and she's going to have the abortion. You can't tell me what to do.
But here's the thing. I've seen on the other side where he says, I want the baby, have the baby. She gives birth, and he goes, changed my mind.
Well, but I mean,
And now she has a
but
baby.
he
She
still
didn't
has a
want to parent.
right. He still has a right to
Then
that
take
baby.
the baby. You said you wanted it, take
Fine.
it.
And I've got
they
a bunch
don't,
of them would.
And there's not
but
a damn
you're
thing
kinda,
that can be done.
you're assuming now. You're just assuming
No,
all
no,
these
I've seen
guys
it
are not going to
happen.
take the babies.
I've seen it happen.
I know, and I've seen it
seen
happen the other way
It does
too,
happen.
though.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen both sides, and I guess my point is, it ain't our problem what the person does with this decision. It's that they should have the ability to have that decision. They should have the dad should have just as many rights about that baby in that woman's stomach as the woman has, because you know what? All I know is when the baby's born, a woman says, "Hey, this baby is yours as much as it's mine. You got to help me do all this." Well, then why come I can't be a part of it when it's in the gestation period? Because I want to be a part of that too. No, you can't be a part of that. And so that's the thing where I get frustrated with.
And I get frustrated with the part where I have a baby with somebody and they go, see ya.
Right.
So.
But we also talk about, we want to talk about the dads that leave. How many stories do we have of the women that leave the babies in the dumpsters and on the steps and all
That
these things too?
happens, too.
There's bad people all over the place that do
Yeah.
these horrible things. But you can't just use one side and say these bad guys, but the women are all angelic when they're having these kids, but the men are these horrible
I
people.
just go back to the fact that what I do in my home
Oh, this is good. This
is
is good.
none of your business.
Yeah.
It's none of your business. It is absolutely none of your business.
About
If I want to have an abortion, I want to have sex
so it's
with
not the
5
dad's
guys on
business.
Tuesday night.
It's not the dad's
No,
business.
I'm saying it is none of your business. It is nobody's. You do not have the right to tell somebody what to do with their body if it's not your child. Legislature should not have the right to tell women they don't know what to do with their bodies and their pregnancies. It's none of their business.
Well, wait a second. But what about you can't smoke? With the law, everybody seems to be on board with it because that hurts your body. They're telling you what to do with your body there. You can't.
You have
You
to
have
wear
to wear a
smoke.
seatbelt. Well, I'm saying but they're putting it where a lot of places you can't do it. They're making it more difficult. That's the government.
Sure.
The government's telling you have to wear a seatbelt. If I don't want to wear a seatbelt, I don't have to. That's what I want to do with my body. I mean, that's where I'm saying the hypocrisy comes back in again, where it always comes back to this is my body. I can do what I want because the government can't tell me. Well, the government tells you how to do a lot of shit with your body.
So then let me ask.
They do.
If we are
They do.
You
so-
can't. Yeah. Certain
Okay.
drugs you can't.
So
Right.
we are so pro-choice. We are so pro-life that we're going to cut WIC. We're going to cut Medicaid. We're going to cut food stamps. Oh yeah, they have.
I know they have, but I'm saying.
But you
don't
can't have
blame-
it both ways.
Why not?
You cannot want a life born and not a life fed, educated, and have medical.
No, because that's why it was all of a sudden up to the government. At one point, you're
Oh,
saying
but you're
the
telling
government
me I
should.
have to have a baby, but I can't afford this baby. I've got 5 babies and
Adoption.
no husband.
Adoption.
Do not.
Well, we just talked
Do
about
not-
adoption.
Do not say
What's wrong with adoption?
it's hard and
It
it's
is
not
hard.
for everybody.
Life is hard.
Life
is hard, and we all go
Bruh,
through these hard
You're
things.
ridiculous right now. You're
No, I'm
ridiculous right
not.
now. You're
No, I'm not.
absolutely ridiculous right now.
You chose to have sex and possibly get pregnant.
Yep, and you're going
then
to tell Hispanic culture. They don't put babies up for adoption. The women
Right.
that I dealt with that were Hispanic, it was hidden.
Then that's
because-
their whatever they dealt with. I mean, they made the choice. Now you have
And
the
so
results.
now they've got 5 babies. They've got to put this baby up for adoption. They're going to be ostracized from their family.
but that's their choice.
Okay.
They chose
And
that.
you know what? I would love to have reasonable prices for birth control so
Sure.
that I wouldn't get pregnant.
Okay, but then again,
I would love to see
here's
men
the deal.
get
Here's the deal. You're
vasectomies.
telling us that the
Okay.
government can't do this and tell you what to do, but then the next step is, but the government needs to pay for me not have a baby. How's it work
So
both
let's
ways?
do this. Let's make men have vasectomies at 13 because they're fully reversible. And when men are ready and willing to step up and be a father and help
You just look at
support all
the guys as
babies.
the bad guys. The
I don't look at
men
as
are the bad guys.
But in my life and my history, I see a lot of women raising kids without help.
I understand. I understand.
Let me interject and say this. This is something I've never understood or felt. And what's really difficult is you've got two men sitting here.
I don't care.
But do you know what I'm saying? Like, and I want to say that it's often told to us, you don't get to talk about
You don't get to say anything.
You
know
can
what I
say
mean?
whatever you want. And
No, we don't get to be a part of it. You don't want us to be a part of that.
I would have loved for my
I don't
ex-husband
I
to be
know
a part
he
of raising
didn't do
my
it,
kids.
but we would. You're
yeah.
already making us the bad guy
And I don't
because you're
think
got
you're-
you
you
wouldn't
mad.
have. You did. You did. And I'm dating a man that did.
Right.
But there is a large number of men that don't.
I understand that.
You guys
but
are the exception and not the rule.
But that doesn't. But it still should have us have the
that
opportunity
still
because
should
there's
give
some
you the right
bad
to tell
people
me
out
what to do
there.
about
If
my
there's bad
body.
people out there, you can't say, well, there's a bunch of bad people, so nobody gets to have a say in what I do with this baby, even though that baby is half that guy.
So listen, we're going to have to agree to disagree on this because you're not even willing to entertain what I'm saying to you.
What am I not entertaining?
Any of it. You have decided that this is it. It is a life. It is murder. It is this. I want you to show me in the Bible where the word abortion is ever used. It's not.
Show me in the Bible where you get paid for tampons by the government. I mean, you can go
It's
through that
the
with all
pink
the
tax.
and so all I'm saying
They
is
didn't have tampons in the Bible.
This is. I was going to say this is the part that bothers me, and I don't quite understand it. Let's just say, and you tell me law-wise if I'm wrong. Allison gets pregnant, which we already know that ain't going to happen because that's not happening right now. But she does. Okay.
Did you get a vasectomy that was paid for by the government?
I didn't need a vasectomy.
Okay.
So let's just say it's not the. You know whose fault it was that
Okay, there
we
you
could
go.
have a baby.
And we're blamed again.
And that's getting edited out, just so you know. Everyone knows. If she gets pregnant, there's some questions that need to be answered. So,
There might be a letter to a baby.
Yeah. Dude, I was in Buffalo that weekend. Don't even look at me. Don't even look at me.
okay, so she gets pregnant, and I'm like, oh my god, I am so excited. I cannot wait for this baby. I want this baby so bad. And she says, I don't, and I'm sorry. I'm having an abortion. I can't say a damn thing, can I?
No.
Why?
Is that fair though? Can you feel me saying?
I don't think it.
"Oh."
No, I don't think it's fair. And I think in relationships, both partners should have a say in what's happening. Right?
How does that work legally? Do you think
It doesn't.
it just doesn't?
It
does
doesn't. It doesn't. But I also think that when you're in a relationship and you make a decision to have a baby, there should be better laws in place to make fathers step up, because there aren't. My first husband owes me $147,000 in child support, and not a damn thing has been done. I raised my kids. It'd be great to have it because I could, do some things with that money now. Nothing was ever done. But if he showed up and wanted to see the kids, I couldn't say he couldn't. And I never did. Actually, on my dime, I would fly my kids to see him when he wanted to see them because that relationship was important to me. I think the difference between you and I is you believe life begins at heartbeat. I believe life is viable when it can survive without me. I have a friend that gave birth at 24 weeks. Her child is a thriving child.
Right.
I don't believe in third trimester abortion at all.
Right.
I think, a decision needs to be made in the first
Well, there's progress.
8 to 12 weeks.
But you say they can't live without you. A 2-year-old can't live without you.
No, I mean attached to me physically
all right.
to be fed and nourished through my placenta. I think that a decision.
Now you're saying words that make me uncomfortable. But go ahead.
Wait till we get to lactation and episiotomies.
She just said placenta.
I just saw Billy in 7th grade health class.
Wait till I tell you how I gave birth at home in a swimming pool.
Don't. No. There's a line, Amy. There's a line.
Roll tape, Jay. No,
Let's look on the screen and look
And
at
here it is.
Here's the pool baby.
I believe that when a child, I don't believe in third trimester abortion. I don't believe in late term abortion. I believe that most women don't even know they're pregnant by week 6 unless you're looking for it, unless you're actively trying to get pregnant. Most women don't know until that point. So that's where we differ. I think if a baby can survive, if a mother gives birth and the baby can survive, great. Who decides that? I think it's somewhere in the early 20 weeks. That's what I believe.
The only thing I'll say is I feel like because of the negative experience you had with your husband or all that, you're kind of putting it on a lot of other people that are like me and Jay. There's a lot of men that want to be involved, and they should have the opportunity to be involved.
I know a lot of great men who have raised their kids and have been involved, even post-divorce.
Right. And I'm not talking like even while the gestation period is going on, while the woman is pregnant. There's a ton of men that want to be involved with that. I mean, we have made such progress as fathers from even my granddad was, we talk about this all the time. As a father, a granddad was basically, 2 generations ago was the provider, and that's it. You talked about your dad was not around a lot because the man's job was go earn money, get enough money so mom can raise the kids and the family's taken care of. We have progressed now that the fathers are very much more involved with families than they were 20 years ago. You would agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So that's where we have to naturally progress, that the fathers also want to be involved when a woman is pregnant, and that you tell him he can't say anything about it and do anything about it when he was a part of that process, just like anything else. I feel like if you have something really valuable and both of us owned it, and all of a sudden my wife just walked off and just smashed it on the ground, and I can't say anything because, well, I was holding it, so it's my deal. It wasn't hers.
Yeah,
it was ours. And so that's the thing that's the hard part for a lot of men. When we're told you can't say anything.
And I
But
can
once the
understand
baby's
that.
born, you better be doing everything with me. Well, wait a second. You didn't want me. I didn't have a say before. Now all of a sudden you want me around for everything, which we want to be. That's where the hypocrisy comes in, I think, a lot on that, because the men want to be a part of it.
You brought up adoption.
Yeah.
Just put it up for adoption. Well, you
Right.
know how many adoptions I've seen where dad is there and he's involved or not involved, and then he stops the adoption and he forces her to keep the baby, and then he disappears, and now she's got this baby. When there was this wonderful family who was ready
was
to
gonna
adopt
take
that
it.
baby.
But I think you can't keep just
So
saying, here's
how
a
do we-
negative that happened, so
No,
we
but-
can't have the
no,
positives over here.
No, I agree with that. But how do we fix it?
Well,
That we have equal
and I think
responsibility.
This will come back
Equal
with the
responsibility.
conservative liberal thing. I feel like you're more on, well, the government needs to do more, and I'm more
No,
on
I
the
don't
government
think
needs
that.
to do less.
I just think that, especially with the current laws, the people that the lack of abortion care affects are people who can't afford to have any kids. And we've taken away things to help them afford those kids, like Head Start. That's going to help those kids thrive, and nutrition and medical care, right? So you can't have it both ways. You can't.
But I think what
in my opinion, you can't.
what can't be skipped over is if you think that a fetus or a baby, whatever you word you want to use, that is 3 months old, is murder. It doesn't, to that person that believes that is the murder of a human being, it doesn't matter if the woman is broke, has
it
no
doesn't matter.
home. It's just murder.
Yeah, and
Do
I
you- so do
don't
you see-
believe that.
But what we're talking about is that murder or is it not? At what age, we were talking
What's
about
the
it's
difference the
breath,
day
it's
one when the baby wasn't born, then the next day the baby is born, and
What's
then
the
you kill
day?
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and you talk about the negative things with these dads. You also have how many stories? I just watched the documentary today while I was working with the Susan Smith killed both her kids because they were inconvenient. You have bad moms too.
They weren't inconvenient. It was because a man didn't want her kids around.
Right, but
No, I'm just kidding. No,
but she still made the decision to kill her kids. We can't make her the hero out of this.
No, and it's
So-
pathetic. I mean, it's pathetic
It's
that you're going to
pathetic.
kill your children to be with a man,
Right. And so,
like a
but
medium man.
again, we go to the you played my point when all of a sudden the man is the bad guy again in this when she killed the kids.
It was a joke.
I know.
there is no jokes anymore. This has gone
was a
serious.
joke.
I'm
It
going to
was
be
a joke.
honest with you. This is fun. I'll be
I
honest
think
with you. I
it
enjoy
is,
talking like
but it's
about this.
good because
Yeah.
this is what has caused us to split.
Because
where
I
we
think
can't.
if I represented the one side of Congress and you represented the other side, or me and Jay, if we talked like this in
We
Congress,
might get something done.
yes.
And I like that it's
Yes.
heated. It's got to be heated. It's emotional.
I don't think it's heated. I'm not offended.
No,
You're not offended.
by heated,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
no,
mean
no, right.
emotional.
Right.
Right.
But it's
Like-
not disrespectful. I don't
Well,
know.
you know,
it's not
and the reason it's
disrespectful.
heated too, let's be honest.
Is the wine.
We're trying to act all higher than mighty
yeah.
while we're
And we're loaded. I shouldn't have done that meth before the podcast. What was I thinking? But anyway, no, I think the reason it's heated a lot of times, and you made this point earlier, and a lot of times, me and you have both been involved with adoption stories, and it's been very
On
integral
different
part
ends,
of our
our
lives.
history.
We're passionate about it. I feel like we're on the same page with it because we've experienced it and all that. Now, what happens when things get heated? Why do things get heated? Most of the time, it's because a lot of the people that it's heated about, or that people get really uptight about, they haven't experienced it. They are doing like, I'll say this all the time, being a Christian. When we talk about sin in class, if we have a Bible study, what's the one that everybody goes to immediately? Homosexuality,
ones that-
abortion,
yeah,
all these
the
things that
ones that don't
nobody's
affect
really
you.
doing in there. Now, if I bring up gossip, lying,
How about wearing mixed
wait a
fabric?
second. Yeah,
Did you enjoy your bacon before church this morning?
Or how about premarital sex?
premarital sex? Yes, all that gossip. Those are the things that all of a sudden you're like, well, are we sure what the
Yeah.
Bible? No, yeah, we're sure, but you're going to now.
We need to show
dance around it.
compassion for
Yeah.
that young couple that's living together in an apartment.
Right.
But God forbid the gay couple.
Right. That's my point.
Do we-
Both is
do we
in
put
our
a-
eyes.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. But we always kind of get more because I didn't do it, so I can be really judgmental about this because I haven't done it.
Because it's not my sin.
It's not my sin. Right.
It's not my sin.
And
Your
so-
sins are bad.
Right.
Mine are understood.
Mine are understood. Mine are like everybody else.
But this is more fundamental. Murder. Right? Isn't that what we're talking about? Is it murder
It's
or
what
is
you-
it not murder?
It's not murder.
Because you are not pro-murder and you are not pro-murder. I am not pro-murder.
None of us are.
But we all are using different definitions.
And that's where
of
I come
who
back
is
to. If
killing
we
a
don't
baby.
know, why are we still proceeding? And that's the thing that's scary to me because I do. Who's the Stephen Wright, the comedian, makes the joke. He goes, "I had a dream that all the aborted babies are just waiting for those people to show up there. You know, when they die, and they got clubs and everything else. They're ready to take it out.
Yeah.
You know, because how many lives have we stopped short? I mean, you stop. I'd like to think I've made a positive impact if I didn't get aborted. So I'd like to think I've made a positive impact in the world. You hear about these other. I think the story about Judy Garland was they tried to abort her and it didn't work, and she ends up becoming this unbelievable star. All these people that did make it through aborted attempts or that couldn't do it. You know, how many people are we missing? Now, yes, we can go to the other side and say how many serial killers did we eliminate and all that.
Yeah.
But you just don't know.
You know what's interesting? Sorry, I just wanted to say something interesting that struck me as soon as you said it is your mother stated in that letter, if it had been legal to have an abortion, I would have. And I feel like, is that unique? Do you
No,
think?
I don't think so.
So the law works in many cases. It stops people that are walking around that would have been aborted who aren't aborted.
Back then it does. I don't think it stops now if you have any, financial wherewithal.
The wealthy can always get the abortion.
Right. Back then, when it was illegal, you're having some pretty horrific health problems because
you're
women
going
are
to
doing it with coat hangers,
Coat
and
hangers, you're
shit
going
like
to back
that.
alley, and people
Yeah.
are dying, and women
Right,
are dying.
right. So-
mothers are dying, right? So now we have motherless children.
And I
because
do
she didn't
come
want to have
back, and
this
you
baby.
mentioned before, I'm not a nobody should ever have an abortion person. I'm thinking if the mother's life is in danger and they have to make a decision,
And
or
that's
if
where the language in this law
the rape thing is a
bad.
problem, the
Well,
incest thing,
it's not.
that is something where it needs to be, okay, this is not a
But
good
here's the
thing.
thing that I worry about: if rape and incest become part of the law, that hey, if you are raped or it's a situation of incest, are we going to have an increase in false claims? But here's the other thing with rape, right? For every 100 rapes that are reported, only one man is convicted. So it's and then it just goes back to how effed up is our judicial system.
I feel like we've got to keep it parallel, though. If you say, because she was raped, murder's okay. Well, then let's take it to a 2-year-old child.
Right.
Because, or no, let's
right.
just say, because this woman was raped, she was allowed to blow the rapist's head off. That's illegal. But what and I'm just trying to say the parallel. If you're going to call it
I get
murder,
Murder's
you
murder.
can't say,
Well, I don't
the
know.
mom was raped, so now you can murder. If you're going to call it murder, it doesn't logically make sense to me to say, well, if it was that situation, I'm okay with murder. You see what I'm saying?
I'm with
if
you.
you want to use the
I'm
word
with you.
murder, and
But
I'm not-
to me, that does give that if the majority of these people that are having abortions or women that are pregnant have chosen to have sex. They made that decision, and the man made that decision.
along with a man. Yeah.
Now, if the woman did not make the decision and a man forced himself on her and raped her, that is a little different. That is different because she did not choose that, and she's now dealing with a horrific thing she's got to, deal with. Now, that is where it can get.
But I'm challenging you on that.
I know.
Because
I
that's
know.
not okay to murder.
No, it's not. But
that's where I'm
and
challenging
that's
your
where
definition
I would
of
say
murder,
that's
right?
the only time I would be pro-choice would be incest or
But
or
the way
rape.
the law is written right now, it's you can't in situations of rape and incest, and it's not clear for doctors to make a decision to doctor their patients.
Well, and the doctor can be sued, and the doctor can get in trouble.
Go to prison.
Yeah,
Can go to prison.
And so that's
I
it's
mean,
a
they're
difficult
trying to pass
decision there.
laws now. If
But-
you're caught leaving the state to have an abortion, if you're driving in a Texas roadway and you're caught leaving the state to have an abortion, you can be prosecuted. It's ridiculous. It's government overreach. It's government overreach, and I want to know to what end and why are we doing this? Why? Why are we doing this?
But
I mean, if
and I
we're
do get back to the government overreach. This is a very serious matter, but the government overreach has been around for a long time.
and it's getting worse.
It is, but it's overreach now, and to the point of the whole. If a guy doesn't want to bake a cake for a gay couple or whatever, then they come in and they start getting on these. That is major overreach to me, where we still can't make decisions just based on our own.
In the private
even if it's
sector.
racist,
Yeah.
even if it's horrible, we should still have the right to be. In my opinion, you have the right to be racist. You have the right to be an asshole.
And I have the right not to participate in supporting you.
Exactly. And so but you talk about overreach, we are getting there with a lot of things. I think even the
Well, the cancel
seatbelt
culture is
law-
out of control.
Right.
Cancel culture
right.
is out of control.
But
I
even
mean,
to
I
the
said to
point-
Jay, we may have to move out of Rockwall County because we're probably going to get canceled over this.
Oh, me and Jay are in good shape. I'll just tell you that right now. You're going to have to find a place to go.
Well,
No, but you're saying what's in your heart. And
Yes.
I don't doubt
I
that.
don't apologize for
Yes.
it.
I don't doubt that for one bit.
And that's the fascinating thing to me is I always have enjoyed, and even if we're going back and forth, your opinion, why you're there, my opinion, why I'm here. We all have our opinions based on how we grew up, how we were raised, our environment,
Your experiences
our experiences.
shape
Yeah.
your opinion.
And so you can't, and like I would tell, my son's very involved in politics, and I remember when he was younger, he would get so mad about liberals or whatever and things. I was like, listen, you have to understand, just because they're doing it different than what we want to do, it doesn't mean that they don't want to have the great country that we want to have too. They're just going about it. They think it should go this way. We think we should do it this way. There is no less problem.
Somewhere in the middle is
yeah,
where we need to be.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
But if they think more government's going to help us, okay, I think you're wrong. But they're looking at me saying, oh, less government's going to hurt us. Okay. But hell, if we just started, kind of coming back, like right now, we talked about this when we had the politicians on. Right now, if I'm a Republican and I'm on the floor and I say I agree with Democrat Congressman Joe because I think also that we shouldn't murder people. The Republicans are going to get on his ass just because he agreed with a Democrat, not that he agreed on something that we all agreed
Well,
on.
we've seen a recent case of that, as we all know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can't even agree with somebody on the other side of the aisle.
Yeah.
Because now you're going to be chastised. We see that with, we've seen that with Justin Holland a little bit.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, yeah.
God forbid he make one vote.
Right.
And maybe
And this is the side that we always pride. This is where I'm hurting as a Republican, and I'm getting further away from calling myself a Republican. I'm more libertarian.
You slide
every
him
day.
over to the liberal side of the
I
town.
got a book for you.
No.
I'll drop a book off on your porch.
But we used to be the party of you can say and do what you want as long as it doesn't hurt me. You have the right to do that. Now we're starting to not do that. As Republicans. Now we're starting to say, if you don't agree with this guy in here, we're not going to support you. We're not going to do
Look
anything.
what's happening in the election right now. Like, I'm a big Justin Holland supporter, and I'm a supporter because he had the balls to say Ken Paxton should be impeached, and I believe that wholeheartly.
But
Believe
did
it
you know?
wholeheartedly.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and forgive me if I'm wrong. I will say to Justin, I'm assuming if Justin was sitting right here, his pro.
Oh, we'd get into it.
I feel like he would probably be more stern on his beliefs of abortion, even
might be.
probably than you. So you're calling yourself a supporter. So the question is, can you support someone who is absolutely 100%? And I don't want to put words in Justin's mouth
But we
because I
used
don't
to
know.
could do that, though. We used to could, if you're a Republican, Republican, but you like a Democrat because of certain things, it used to be okay.
See, and here's the thing, right? I'm not. I learned living in Rockwall, and there are a lot of Democrats who'll be like, "You're the problem." If I want my vote to count, I'm going to have to vote Republican, and I'm going to have to get involved in Republican politics because I'm not. My people are not going to get elected. It is a
Your people.
put it in your pipe and smoke it. It's not going to happen.
Right.
There are a lot of things I don't agree with, Justin, but one thing I 100% agree with is that Ken Paxton is a crook and he should have been impeached. And he had the balls to do that, and now he's paying for it.
Right.
And it's not just because he's
That's
my
the
broker.
issue I have.
But are you saying that
When
from...
you think real estate, think Regal. Has nothing to do with that.
There comes the plug. No.
There it is.
Just kidding.
Regal Realtors, ladies and gentlemen. And don't forget to subscribe. That button right down on our podcast.
469-338-1488. But I respect him for that.
Mm-hmm.
Do we agree on everything else? Probably not. But when I'm looking at who I'm going to vote for,
I think you make a
That
good
was a hot
point
button for
because if we reversed it, and me and you were in your hometown,
let's go to San Jose.
right? We
Come on
would be
down.
we'd be in the same boat, and it would
You
we
want
would
your vote to count.
right, and it's not.
Yeah.
But even to the point of what I'm getting to is, as far as Republicans go, is even the. We used to be a lot more, we don't want censorship. You know, we never were censorship people. It was always the liberals that wanted to, censor things. And it used to be
It's
the opposite.
opposite now.
Yeah. And it used to
Taking
be.
my books from me.
Right. It used to be the opposite. It used to be the liberals that were the ones that were saying, let them do what they want, let them say what they want. And the Republicans were the ones, and the conservatives were the ones that were like, no, that ain't good, that ain't good.
Right,
Now it seems to be reversing a little bit because we're starting to get a little bit more and my whole deal is it all comes down to being offended when who gives a shit if I'm offended? Why should you care that I'm offended? All I can do is not watch that anymore.
That word offended offends me. Right. I'm so tired of that word.
Right.
What does that mean? It's
and how arrogant is it that because I'm offended by this one thing, I need to let the world know that I'm offended on social media and I got to protest. I got to do all these things. I understand some protests that are legitimate and they need to protest. But when you're out there getting mad about, these other deals that all you got to do is change the channel or don't listen to that guy.
But liberals are not the only ones being offended daily.
No, that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah, it's
that's what I'm getting to.
Getting offended. What does that mean?
I know.
What is that going to do? This is one of the things when we talk about conservatives and liberals that introduction of a conversation. I feel as soon as I begin talking to a liberal that I don't know, they pin me for a racist asshole white man that doesn't care about minorities or anyone else.
I'm going to be called a racist and a Nazi in about 10 minutes.
So fucking much.
Right.
That this lady is going to say, you're a racist.
Right.
And I want to say, fuck you, you don't know me.
That's how Jay and I met.
That's what I told her. But it infuriates me that person is going to call me a racist. And even if I don't believe I am, I just don't know it, but I am.
Well, it's also the whole thing,
Fuck
too,
you.
that once you say that about somebody publicly, that person is done. I mean, even if they're not. I mean, a lot of times they're not. But if I make the preacher at Lake Point made the joke about the
Let's dig into that.
Yeah.
Let's dig in. Here's
You're
the
about
thing
to
about
get
me.
controversial.
Here we go.
This is a gold nugget of advice I was given by a mentor. Okay, so this is free. Can y'all handle it? Okay, this is free. Okay. Now first, let me do this. So let me talk to the guys first. Guys, when it comes to her wedding day, she has been planning this day her entire life. She got her first wedding magazine when she was 14. She draped the blanket around her like it was her wedding dress when she was a teenager. She did the towel over her head. It was a little veil, all the stuff. She's been planning this day her whole life. So here's what you need to do, man. When it comes to that day, just stand where she tells you to stand, wear what she tells you to wear, and do what she tells you to do. You'll make her the happiest woman in the world, okay? Now, I got an amen. Let's see if you amen this. Now, ladies, when it comes to his wedding night, he has been planning this day his whole life. So just stand where he tells you to stand, wear what he tells you to wear, and do what he tells you to do, and you're going to make him the happiest man in the world. That's it, man. Okay. That was free. Acts chapter 1.
Aimee, you have the floor.
The thing that was funny to me, I got the joke. Like, you know,
Right.
stand here, wear this,
Right.
stand here, wear this. The part that was funny to me is he thinks 14-year-old girls are dressing up in plain bride. They're not. And that a boy's going to be a virgin on his wedding night. He's not.
Or a woman.
I have 10-year-old, or women, I have 10-year-old granddaughters. And you know what we talk about? We talk about what colleges they want to go to. We talk about their career aspirations. We don't talk about, I can't wait for my wedding. So that's where the tone deafness came for me.
But-
I mean, it was a fun, I got
Right.
whatever. It
he
didn't
meant
offend me.
this
You
is
know,
what
and you
some-
can have the conversation about consent and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, it's
It's
just
a
a joke to
joke.
think they're
It was a
virgins. And
joke.
it's a joke to think 14-year-old girls give a
Right.
shit.
But even
about
to the
that.
point of that, though, just the whole basic thing of the joke was based on women live for the wedding that day, and the
And
men
men
live
went
for the sex
night.
that night.
Yeah.
That's life.
But you know what? Here's something I found out. Women like sex too.
What?
Now that's a big surprise.
I know.
But
Well,
they may be looking forward to that as well. I
somebody
think.
And they may say to him, put this on and stand there.
Right. And
Call
if
me
a,
Keep your
Daddy.
mouth shut.
let me tell you this.
Call me daddy.
If a guy is going to get sex, he will do whatever you ask. He's in. He's
You're
in.
not wrong.
Yeah, he's in. So,
Yeah.
but and it's the whole thing of the double standard, though. And I feel like the people that got offended by it were, you know, the woman can tell the guy, you're going to do this at the wedding. You're going to wear this and do this. Nobody seems to have a problem. Now the guy can say, okay, tonight you're going to
Because
wear
it's
that
about
negligee.
sex.
Exactly.
it's
And
about
so,
sex.
wait a second. That's the same thing. We're just reversing the situation. You know, I always joke
It
around with my
was-
wife when she tells me, you know, hey, that yard's getting high. You need to go mow and you need to take the trash out. And if I turned around and said, well, them dishes are getting high, you need to wash the dishes. How do you think that's going to go at my house?
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
going to go well.
Well, the
and
whole-
so that's where it's a double standard.
And the double standard was, it was humor. And you know what's funny is stereotypes. So to put women in that stereotype,
Right.
All I want to be is a
yeah,
bride.
to
Right.
put the man that
Right.
I'm
And
going
all I
to get to
wanna do
have
is get
sex.
laid.
Right.
That's why it's funny because it's stereotype.
It's stereotype.
Racial
and
stereotype
Those two
joke. I
people
mean-
have had sex numerous times before
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
gotten there. So yeah,
They're probably getting married because they, because they're going to have that 9-pound preemie.
And that's what he was making a joke
Right.
using stereotypes.
Exactly.
And that's what good humor is.
That's a
You listen
majority
to
of
Richard
jokes.
Pryor on his racial stereotypes.
Right.
It's funny because it's a
Oh,
stereotype.
no, we're not allowed to have good humor anymore.
but that's the point is, and I think a lot of it too is there's probably a lot of people that were watching it going, wait, this is a preacher. He can't say that, even though it was fine. He's making, preachers have sex too, you know, and they know about weddings and, you know, not the priest apparently, but we won't go into that. Yeah, that's we won't go to that.
They
That's the
do.
thing.
Miss
They do.
Catholic
Okay,
schoolgirl,
there-
right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's, we may have stepped into a zone there that we want to step back away from,
Yeah.
but the whole, but yeah, and that's where we're at right now. It seems to me that it's just a bunch of people hunting for things to
be
because you
upset
get your
about.
moment. You
Yeah,
get your moment.
You get your 15 minutes of viral
right,
fame on TikTok.
Right, right. And at some point, I'm just hoping that starts wearing off and that this is, you know, because I guess the whole thing is, like I said, we talked about earlier. What's the show I was talking about? I forget the guy's name now. There's the talk show.
Graham Norton.
Graham Norton.
Oh, yeah.
That show, he's gay and he's flamboyant and he's got. I don't agree with a lot of that as a Christian, but you know what? Who cares? I think he's funny.
Yeah.
And I think the guests are funny. I don't agree with those guests a lot. There are a lot of their political beliefs are opposite of mine, and a lot of their social beliefs are opposite of mine. But the guy was funny. The girl was funny. He's funny. I'm fine with it. If they get on something that I think is off, you know, shouldn't be mentioned, click. I'll go to the next one. But we don't do that anymore. We just now sit there. Wait, I need to tell the world that he just offended me on a joke, and that's the thing that's really hard for me right now. And what's happening is I feel like it's creeping into both sectors, you know, when and this is how is this ever going to be resolved if we can't even talk to each other anymore? We can't even say things. The other day I'm on the bond committee and I said we're talking about portable buildings. I called them portables and somebody goes, they're learning cottages. You know,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like what the hell?
Learning
They're
cottages.
learning cottages. And so I'm like, oh, so Hansel and Gretel are there to greet you when you come in, I guess. But but we're in a world now that is constant I got to show you that I'm either better than you or smarter than you or that I socially am better.
Yeah.
And that's a problem because we're not.
We've just gone too far extreme. Too extreme on the left, too extreme on
Yeah,
the right,
yeah.
and there's nothing left in the middle for normal people.
For normal,
I
and-
want to be able to afford groceries. I want to be able to go on vacation.
Right.
I don't want to work 3 jobs because the cost of living has gone up.
But what's the reason we can't change it? Why do you think we can't change it
I
now?
think that people do not want to look within themselves and say, hey, maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe that makes sense.
That's hard to say you're wrong.
But
I
I
have-
have a theory on it. I also think it's because people, if as a Republican I came out and said, and I am, I disagree with and I don't know, we'll get people mad. As a Christian, I don't agree with homosexuality. Okay, I think it's a sin, but it ain't my business. Okay, so you do what you do. I'm fine with it. You can get married. You can do whatever you want. Just don't force me to think that way. As long as I'm not going to force you to think my way. But if I said, hey, I want to talk to this gay couple about, if the gay couple came to me and said, hey, can you do a drawing for us? I'm an artist. Yeah, I'll do it. There's going to be some people like, what are you doing? You can't do that. We disagree with that. Well, yeah, but I can
Would
still
they-
do a drawing for them. I
would
can
they
still do a
s-
graphic for them.
Would you do a drawing for two 24-year-old man and woman that live together in an apartment?
What do you mean? Like a man and woman live together?
Unmarried,
That aren't married.
shacking up, couple shacking up.
Would you have a problem
as long
doing
as
that?
it's not promoting it. That's my line.
Would
I
those-
don't promote anything that I disagree with. But if it's somebody that does, because I'm sinning my ass off too, okay? And so we're all sinning. We're all out there
Right.
sinning. So, but I'm trying not to. I'm assuming the next guy's trying not to. But if they came to me and said, "I want you to do a brochure for us. We have a adoption center." Okay, great. I'll do it for you. Now, if they came to us and said, hey, I want you to promote premarital sex, yeah, I'm not going to do that one because that one goes against my beliefs. I do that with all the political campaigns I do. I've done political campaigns for Democrats before. But if there's an issue in there I disagree with, well, I'm not going to promote it. And that's the only thing. But it could be whoever it is. I mean, like they said, like Michael Jordan said, when they asked him about something about the Republicans, when he first had his shoe out, he had the Air Jordan out.
Yeah.
And he said something that, and they said, he didn't go, somebody, Republican or conservative said something, they said, aren't you mad about it? And he goes, I'm fine with it. He goes, you're not mad? And he goes, hey, man, Republicans have money too. They wear shoes too, and that's where I stand on it. Now, if they came to me and said, I want you to, promote abortion or whatever, or pro-choice or whatever, yeah, I'm not going to do that. But if you need me to do something for your business or your wedding or whatever it is, okay, fine, I'll do it.
And that's our rights in this country.
Right.
That we've got that,
Yeah, I
It's the
mean,
right of that baker not to make the cake for the gay couple if he doesn't want to.
And
it's his right.
I got ordained to do weddings when they said can't do gay weddings. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I will do all the gay weddings. And I fully believe that if churches don't want to do it, that's fine.
That's
They
fine.
don't have to do it. But you
right.
can't tell two consenting adults they can't enter into a legal contract.
Right.
And that's what marriage is.
Right.
If you
Right.
want to get married in church and you want that to be a covenant between
Right.
you and God and your marriage, if churches don't want to do it, that's fine. But you can't tell consenting adults.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
can't enter into a legal contract.
And the government can't tell the church you have to do this, or tell the baker you have to make that
No,
cake.
and I agree with that.
And that's where we're
just
coming
as
back to.
I don't have to give my money to people that
But
that
we
won't
can't
do it.
that anymore. We can't, like, if that person says, I don't want to make the cake for the gay couple, we used to back in the day be like, okay, he doesn't want to do it. He's going to lose $100. Yeah. That's his choice.
And I'm going to tell 10 people.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so now we are at a point that everything's a battle. Everything is, I got to get this. And if somebody messes up, I mean, look what we do now with Twitter and all these others, where somebody may have said something stupid 15 years ago on Twitter or Facebook. And if somebody becomes famous or does something, they find it. How many things are we still the same 15 years ago? There's a lot of things we are, but there's a lot of things we're not. There's a lot of opinions that have changed or whatever, how we do things. But that's what we do too. We go after these people because it's not I'm doing this to make the world better. It's I want to get that guy or I want to get that girl. And so I don't like them. I want to get them.
Don't we all want to be right these days? We want
You want to be happy or you want to be right? Let's Dr. Phil it. You want to be happy,
right.
you want to be right.
Now, I want to move over
All
to.
right, let's move. Let's go to something fun.
Well, I don't know if you're going to think this fun. Let's talk.
Let's go to immigration.
I'm going
Well,
to.
my mother's first generation American. Anyway, go ahead.
I'm going to bring up your boyfriend
Okay.
and the fact that he is, some may say, a staunch conservative.
I don't think that. But I think he's a common sense moderate.
There you go. There you go.
But very pro-life.
Oh, very.
Very pro-life. How does this?
I need to meet this young man.
Was the exchange that just happened here? Is that a nightly event at your house? Or?
We don't talk about it all that much. It comes up. Like we love politics and we love to watch the debates and that sort of thing. And it comes up and it has gotten heated. It's gotten heated to the point where I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. But
Oh, that's funny.
Have there been you giving here and him giving there? Has that happened? changes of opinion, in other words.
Yes, he now agrees that things like healthcare and WIC and Head Start should be something provided by the government. He's happy if his tax dollars go to that, if a child is born.
Have you come to his side on anything?
Absolutely not.
There you go.
That's a woman
There
for
it
you.
is. Yeah, absolutely not.
Because
You're right. He's not.
I believe what I believe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I don't apologize for it. I believe what I believe, and you're perfectly entitled to, and I respect that.
And you respect it.
I respect it.
That's
the
the
key.
point. Yeah. Yeah.
And I believe what I believe. And, you know, I don't agree in third trimester. I don't agree in all that crazy chop the kid's head off as it comes out of the birth canal. But
Okay.
please don't tell me what to do at 6 weeks.
All right. Let's go to something. We talked about going to fun.
Fun.
We always have these questions for
Oh,
people.
Lord.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I would like to read people's minds.
Really?
Yeah.
See,
That's dangerous.
That is.
Because I can manipulate you.
You should.
Have you seen the Twilight Zone where the guy could read people's minds?
That used to scare the crap. I would hear that music. My mom would send us to bed. and
So
I'd
you
hear,
didn't watch Twilight Zone?
"Do-do-do-do-do-do-do." Yeah, I'd stand at the stairs and watch, and it would terrify me.
Because it's the guy that played Darren on Bewitched, but he flips a
Yes.
nickel into get the newspaper and lands on its side. That gives him the
Yes.
power to read people's
Yeah,
minds.
yeah.
It's a good one. It's a good one. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good. What's your biggest fear? What scares you the most, other than conservatives?
Coming on a conservative podcast.
You people running the world. Jeez. What scares me the most is something happening to one of my children or one of my loved ones and never knowing, like them disappearing and never knowing what happened to them.
That's a yeah.
I could.
Do you watch the Datelines and stuff like that? Those Dateline shows?
Have you shown him my senior picture?
Oh yeah, I did see that. I did see that. That's funny. Put that up there.
This
Yeah.
is what you are most likely to.
I want to be involved in a life of crime. I have been a true crime junkie since I was like with the gangsters in the 30s. I know
can we
everything
talk-
about all the 30s
Can we
gangsters.
talk 80s
Yeah, what's
here?
happened here?
I like The Cure.
This is your nephew?
Yeah, that's the Cure.
That's
the
my
lead.
nephew,
All you needed
Brandon.
was a whiter face, and you're lead singer for the Cure.
Yeah.
Now look at this 80s lady.
Look at those nails. Can
What are
you
you
zoom
sipping
in on the
on?
nails?
What are you sipping
What
on?
is
there?
Look at those
blue?
nails. My mom let me have an alcoholic drink. It was a blue Hawaii. We were in Hawaii, so she said I could have one. And that's most of my
Okay, who do
family.
we have
There you go.
It's my mother, my brother Pete, his wife Mary, my brother Billy who killed himself, my sister-in-law Faye, my brother Chris, me, and my cousin James.
Wait, is that Billy the blonde in the back?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I like that name.
Here's the kid.
There's
These
the
are my
kids.
biological kids.
So
we've
tell us
got-
the kids' names again. Go through the kids.
So on the left is Summer in the pink, Kirby, Sean, and then Ariel. So Kirby's my oldest, Ariel's my middle, and Summer's my youngest.
I have a wife named Autumn. You have a daughter named Summer. There you go.
She was born in the fall. She should have been named Summer or Autumn.
Autumn.
Oh, we should talk about that.
Okay, so this is kind of interesting. So
funny.
we have we share a love for music.
We have a love of music.
Yes.
We're constantly sending each other weird songs. Have you heard
Yes.
this? Have you heard this? So this was a band called Bourgeois Tag in the 80s. And they had like a couple of hits, which I couldn't even
One
tell you
big
right now.
one.
And
The slow song.
So the guy in the left front, his name was Larry Tagg, and he was a founding member. And
The 50-year-old. It looks
he was
like.
30, he was
I think
35.
that's my accountant. That's my accountant.
He's a professor now in Sacramento and teaches Civil
Yeah,
War
she's not.
history.
She's
Really?
not.
Yeah.
He looks like he should be teaching Civil War history.
So I was 15, he was 35. I had a crush. I followed him around the Bay Area, saw all their concerts I could that summer, and I thought, I want to meet this guy. So I hauled my booty down to the library and I got the white pages out. And I couldn't find
You are all involved in Yellow Pages and White Pages. This is like the third
That
story
was
involving.
but you know that was the internet.
Oh,
back
yeah.
then.
the internet.
That was us.
And I
Yeah.
couldn't find him. So I'm like, let me go a couple years back before he had a hit. And then I found a phone number. I'm like, let me see. I wrote it down. I went home, got on my phone was Lips, and I picked it up and I dialed long distance. And
Again, here's another long distance story.
And it was still his number. And I chatted him up and told him I was much older than I was. And he gave me his address, and we started this pen pal relationship.
That's great.
And it was a little, even the first letter he sent me was a little bit flirty. And then there was another letter that was like, why don't you come up and ask me the personal questions? And I'm like, well,
Did he know you were 15?
No.
Okay.
So you tried. Okay, so this
If
is.
he says, every once in a great while, a letter comes through that dares quite a lot more than what I'm used to.
Oh, wow.
Oh wow.
Perhaps
wordsmith.
you've guessed already, you clever thing, that yours is
cow.
one of those. I realized, I said, are you from Texas? Because he had an accent. And he's like, I thought, it was covered, but yeah, I'm from Dallas.
Oh, they started in Dallas.
I guess.
yeah.
So anyway, one of the letters he sent was, why don't you come up and ask me the personal questions? I'm like, I can never speak to you again. Because I might be able to sound older on the phone, but I look like I'm 10.
Yeah. And if he would have been into you then, it would have completely
been a problem.
shattered your whole...
That's funny.
Yeah.
Real quick, I'll tell you, we talk about the trying to get information. When I was in college, guys do this. I'm sure girls do it too. But I know the guys, we are always trying to, hey, I wonder, like for instance, one time we were all in a huge argument over how you sell back your hotels in Monopoly, to the point that we stopped the Monopoly game. We wrote Parker Brothers to get, what percentage, even though it was in the instructions, one was arguing. And so we waited. That game sat for like 6 months till we got, so one of them was, I bragged that I knew all the state capitals and I could name them all. So, and this is late at night, so I'm like, and I'm going through them. All of a sudden, I go brain dead on Vermont. Okay, do y'all know Vermont?
I would not be able to...
Okay, so I'm going, and all of them are giving me hell. They're like, dude, you got 49. I'm like, oh, Vermont. So finally, we decided, because if you remember,
What is it?
Montpelier.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we can't figure it out, and this is no internet, so. There used to be a commercial that says, if you need information, call the library. The library will help you with stuff. So, but it's like 9 p.m. So we're like, oh, man, the library's closed here in San Marcos. So then we figure out, wait a second, if we call California, let's call California Library. And then, of course, it's like, so we get on the phone, we go to the operator.
411.
411. And we go, we get the operator, and she's like, we go, I just need the Los Angeles Library, And then she goes, so finally she couldn't connect. Nobody was answering. And so I was like, dang it. And the operator, you had live operators then.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden she goes, I said, ma'am, I go, all right, let's just give up. I just needed some information. And just out of the blue, she goes, well, what did you need? And I go, we just need to know the capital of Vermont, And she goes, wait a second. And then you can still hear her. She's gotten away from the mic, but you can hear her, and she's like, anybody know capital of Vermont?
Are you serious?
And then you hear this lady, and all I can picture is this operator doing this and just going, Montpelier, and then just keep going. And the lady comes back, it's Montpelier. And I'm like, there we go.
So that was the early internet.
So did you guys in Texas have 7678900 for the weather and time?
Oh, yeah,
No,
yeah.
ours was something different.
It was different, but we had that. It wasn't
Yeah,
that number.
yeah.
Yeah.
What was
Or
ours?
when you could call, if your friend was on the phone for too long, you could call the operator and say, can you do an emergency
Emergency
breakthrough?
Emergency breakthrough.
And then it was their
I've done
parents on the phone, and you get yelled
Yeah.
at, and you're like, oh.
We lived out in the country. We had the party line.
Oh,
you remember
yeah,
the party
yeah,
line?
yeah. I never did the party line, but
we
yeah,
had the
it was
party
a
line.
thing.
So our ring was 2. Then you had somebody that had 3 rings, and you had somebody at 1. And the thing as a kid, what was great, because you would always get excited, and you would ring, and you're like, I don't know. But if it was 2, and you're like, oh, it's 3. But then as a kid, you start figuring out, I can hear the other, and you just pick it up and listen, because you're listening to all the conversations.
Yeah, and you'd hope that you could talk to somebody and then give them
Right.
your number, and then you could talk to them.
Right.
I grew up in a 2-story house where if I was upstairs, I could pick the phone up and dial my home number and ring downstairs and ask for things. But then that movie, When a Stranger Calls, come out, and it ruined me with the babysitter. And they're like, ma'am, the call is coming from the house.
Inside the house.
I don't think I ever babysat again.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm never going to do it. Or
Okay.
I just posted a meme about the joys of being able to be
Oh,
alive
yeah, I
and you
saw
could
that.
slam a phone down on
You
somebody.
can't do that.
It's not
It's
anymore.
like, and then you
And they
hit the-
just keep talking, and
right.
they're like, and they call back, oh, we must have gotten disconnected. No, bitch,
I
I hung
remember-
up on you.
That is funny. I remember also the beat down of if somebody had a 0 in their number, and it just seemed forever when it had to come back. Yeah. You're like, oh my gosh, they got 2 zeros in there. I got to wait forever to call them.
Do you remember your first phone number?
556-2502.
408-264-6544.
475-1654.
My first driver's license matched my phone number at the time, which I thought, oh, that'll be easy to memorize.
That's greatness.
Yeah.
Our big deal was growing up, I grew up in a little town. We were the only Qs. Okay. And so in the phone book, we used to be all our family. There was a number of Quintons. Well, they all moved. And all of a sudden, it was the biggest thrill when the phone book came out. And it's about that thick. And we're like, God, we're still there. And then finally, the Quintanillas moved in, and we were
they
no
ruined
longer
it.
we were no longer the only Qs.
They ruined it.
That was a defeat. Okay, real
funny.
quick, we talked about Dateline and all that stuff. So, what's your favorite movie? Like, what movie? If you're like, I gotta watch this again.
It's 2, and it's either going to be The Goodfellas or Long Kiss Goodnight, which is an
Goodfellas.
action.
I knew you would do
I
it.
made
Goodfellas.
him watch the trailer for Long Kiss Goodnight.
I had never heard of that.
All right,
an
Long Kiss
action
Goodnight. I've heard of it, but I don't
Gina
know.
Davis and Samuel L. Jackson. It's about a woman who wakes up on a beach with amnesia, thinks she's a school teacher. Turns out she was a hired assassin for the government.
Oh, very good. Okay, I got to
It's
check that
excellent.
out.
It's a Christmas movie.
It's Samuel L. Jackson is in every movie.
And he does da-na-na-na. He can't remember things, so it'll be like da-na-na-na-na. Put on my coat. Da-na-na-na-na. Get my phone.
What are you watching anything now, like on Netflix, all that
watched
stuff?
too much. We started, we just finished the chasing of, who's the guy that killed Lincoln.
Yeah, Killing Lincoln,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yes, yeah. And
Oh, the John Wilkes Booth thing.
John Wilkes
Yes,
Booth thing,
yes.
and we're getting ready to watch the Franklin with
Yes, with
Yeah,
Kirk, or
with
not Kirk Douglas, Michael
Michael
Douglas.
Douglas,
Yes,
yeah.
I'm all in on that.
Yeah.
One of our favorites is John Adams, the John Adams one on
Oh,
HBO. That's me and Cash's favorite. We'll watch
Yeah.
that all the time. So yeah, okay. So and then what do you do in your spare time, like when you just need to unwind?
I mean, I read a lot. We like to travel. We travel a lot. That's, I think, probably what I like to do
are a
most.
traveler.
Yeah, I like to read. I went to Thailand last fall and fought a
Oh
monkey.
wow.
Literally fought a monkey. That was great.
See, Thailand scares me because every movie made about Thailand, people are either in the prison or
Well, I avoided
if you put a
drugs.
piece of gum on the ground, they're going to put you in prison.
There are a lot of things. Don't touch anybody's head. Don't step over. Don't step on a threshold. You have to step over it. If money drops, don't touch it.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Oh, see, that
It's a-
stressed me out.
yeah.
I'd be like you before a
It's a
podcast.
lot. And I go to this place called Monkey Island where there's pictures to warn you that the monkeys can rip your face off. So what do? Sit down and start holding monkeys.
I'm going to play that video.
Yeah, you
I've
should
got it.
Okay, yeah.
The
okay.
monkeys
You
go
gonna put that in.
It's really funny because when the fight happens with the monkey, you hear a shot in the background, and it's just the timing is just perfect.
So this is what they said about Aimee in high school. So Aimee Foster, of course, 80s.
Yeah,
girl.
there it is.
I look.
That's a
older-
glamour shot.
I look older there than I do now.
Yeah, I love how they have you.
Yeah. Was that the
Amy's-
school photo, or did you
No,
go get a
I
special
had to do it.
one?
And I was so pregnant. And I had such morning sickness that in between pictures, I was going and throwing up.
So we've got Amy's life ambition is to be involved in crime.
I wanted to be a forensic detective.
She was voted most outgoing by the class for her friendly personality. Aimee also has a great love of food.
Yeah.
They hit it right.
So what is your last meal? You're on death row, and you get any meal you want.
Any meal I want.
Yeah, we always do this in our family, and mine changes because some days it's like I want ham and eggs.
I just feel like I would not be hungry.
Oh, I would be hungry.
Oh, I'm going out. If I'm
Yeah,
going, I'm
yeah.
going. And I can eat anything I want. So I'm going to start with some East Coast oysters. I'm going to start with East Coast oysters.
Bougie.
I will probably have some carpaccio with some truffle oil.
Oh wow, this is
Golly.
fancy.
What would I'd probably have a lobster roll or like, I don't like fillets, like a ribeye.
Okay,
And some sort of a potato.
You
I don't
are-
want dessert. I
You are
like
not a
eating
cheap
food.
date.
and that's where I come back to. I'm like, would I waste time on a dessert? It'd have to be a really good dessert.
I'm a
I
big sweets
would.
person.
I am, though.
I'll eat a bite. Like when
Yeah.
you go out to eat, I'll eat a bite of dessert, and I'm pretty much
Got a
done.
buddy of mine that will not eat desserts. I'm like, why? And he goes, because it takes up space where I can eat more of the meal.
But, yeah, but if you put a loaf of like sourdough bread in front of me with
yeah.
butter, I'm like, "Shh, back off.
You know what I would have is a pizza.
Really?
There's just nothing
I agree.
better to
I agree.
me than a pizza.
Sometimes a pizza is just the most perfect meal when it's a great pizza.
Yeah.
You know what I might do? I might do the pork chop and risotto from Zanata.
Oh, that's pretty damn good.
That's real good. I had that
is
last night
real
or 2 nights ago, and I'm just always in on that.
My
This is
favorite
good.
breakfast. Let's talk favorite breakfast.
Oh,
Spaghetti, leftover spaghetti.
really?
I'll eat biscuits and gravy,
surprises me.
but like scrambled eggs and omelets gross me out. Like
Really?
biscuits and gravy, I'll do, but if
Biscuits and gravy.
breakfast for me are leftovers.
No, mine is eggs over easy with ham and hash browns.
If I'm gonna do eggs, they have to be over medium. Like scrambled eggs make me gag.
Really?
Yes.
See, most of the time it's the over medium, over easy that make people
that people get
don't
grossed
like.
out
Yeah.
on. I want to show y'all. Y'all may not think this is funny.
Okay.
But
oh,
I
is this
watched-
the meme you were talking about?
This is a little video. I just want to play it
Okay.
because I thought it was hilarious. I laughed my ass off.
Okay.
So now it's not going to be funny because I said that.
Yeah, you should
But
never
you know,
led
we've
with
talked a
that.
little bit about alcohol and going to bars.
Right.
So I want to go to this bar. I want to know what
Okay,
this
let's
bar
go.
is.
Oh, look at that guy. Look at that guy. That dude is toast.
Doing the march. Here comes the bitch.
You can't say that, Jane.
That is a great bar.
And then the last one, the lady with the
the
cast and the
cast.
crust.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a TikTok of a lady who the cops come to her house and she goes to talk to them and she falls through her screen and she lays on the ground and I'm like, ma'am, are you okay? She's like, leave me alone. I just want to lay here. They're like, ma'am, we can't leave until please go back in your house. And she's just laying in the dirt.
So-
and I feel that.
in that one, we had it look like the lead singer for the Monkees that started it out, and then we
town-
had
the
the
town-
midget. Then you had the old guy. Then you had to do
The
I think
marcher.
is- the marcher. I think
The
he's
marcher.
plastered. He's one of those that's just plasters.
yeah.
And then
And
you
then
got
the
the
guilt.
chick with the cast or whatever's going on there. There
That's
is some
the
serious
bar I
stuff
wanna go
happening
to.
there.
So
Where is
where's
that bar
that?
at?
It looks British or
Well,
Irish.
I've got a passport. Let's go.
Well, they got Lennon and Jimi Hendrix on the deal there,
Yeah.
so that doesn't help us, you know. But
We've got to find out where that is.
yeah.
You know, you asked me what I like to do,
Mm-hmm.
and I skipped a huge part of my life, which is community theater.
Oh wow.
You've done a lot of theater.
I've done theater
Directing?
since I was
Have you done it
7.
here?
Oh, Rockwell Community, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I live in the theater district.
know.
Okay.
Down the street.
Down the street at the
Yes,
theater district. Yes.
You live off
Do
Broadway.
you,
Yeah,
do
we
you
live right
attend
on-
the theater?
Oh yeah, we have to wear our tuxes on Friday.
Theater.
We dim the lights when there's time for intermission to be over.
Yeah, I have mostly directed since I've been here. I've acted a couple times, but I've done a lot of work with RCP.
I need to go. I've never been to a play there, and we're in the district.
It's great. You got.
I know. I hear great things
Yeah.
about it.
Oh my gosh,
I know. I got to go.
I'm dragging you out.
Okay.
We'll talk
Let's
about
do it.
abortion.
We'll
when
talk
we
about
watch a show.
abortion while we go
Maybe
there.
I can find us an abortion play.
that you've directed and produced.
Oh, you
Yeah.
know, we'll go see the vagina monologues.
No, we're not. We are not seeing
Yeah,
that.
we are.
Although as a guy, when you first heard about that, you're like, I'm in.
Yeah,
I mean, what?
I
am all in.
Have you seen It is so funny.
Is that about it
It's
is?
so funny.
Could we have the penis dialogues? Would that be allowed?
I mean, it'd be a little limp, but sure, if you want to.
Fell a little flat for
Fell a
me.
little flat. This has been fun.
Well,
Yeah.
it has been fun.
Yeah,
It-
thank you.
It was a ride. We
yeah.
I loved it.
I
thought it was
loved it
great.
too.
That was great. And can't thank you enough for
We'll see
for
how the
joining
editing
us.
goes. We might have to come back and fill.
I
in a
don't
few
want to cut
things.
out any of that.
No, the editing's going to be I win the abortion argument. So we're just going to take out everything that Aimee said.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, like she didn't have a word to say back. It's going to be all
It's
you
just me.
schooling her.
If somewhere in it you hear me say anywhere in it, you're right.
Yes.
Just
you're
clip,
right.
cut to that.
It
You
is.
just said you're right. I'm
Yeah,
going to cut
gonna
that
put
and
that in
use
there.
it.
And
on-
then what you're going to do
Every
is come back
time-
and say,
I say things like
Pink
life
tax.
starts at a heartbeat, and we see a shot of her going.
You're, yeah,
Yep,
Herb not.
Yep. It's going to be great.
I'm
it's
running
going
for
to be
vice
great.
president.
We really appreciate it. Thank you, because I
Yeah.
know
That's
that was fun. That was really fun. Oh.
All right.
All right.
Are you still nervous?
No,
good.
I was nervous when you two were.
Oh, it was
And
good.
did y'all notice me
Well, sure.
creeping out of it? I
And
was like,
me going this way?
Yeah, both of us are going at each other.
I stay at very
I
neutral.
raised up my mug to kind of throw it, and then Jay's
I
gone.
was like, where's that wine bottle? Listen, I had a bunch of brothers. Let me show you. I can
You
buy
could you
it.
could take it on.
That's funny. It was a great time. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Next week.
Try to top this.
The time for talking's over now. I guess it's time to let you go. But I don't. No, I don't.